element of the Commission's new Pact on Migration and Asylum. The Pact aims at a fresh start for migration in Europe to address what is and has been a controversial issue for many years. On this point, I'd like to quote the European Commissioner for Home Affairs, Ylva Johansson, who visited Ireland recently. She said, "It's important to say that migration is normal. It has always been there and it will always be there. Of course, it can be a challenge to manage, but we have nothing to be afraid of." And I think Irish people know all about migration. It has been part of our DNA for many centuries, and mostly outward, of course, but in recent times, more of the inward variety. This year is the European Year of Youth. One of its objectives is to encourage young people to become active and engaged citizens. And I think that this event is a good example of that. It allows young people to get to grips with a complex political issue, and more importantly, to learn about different points of view, to make compromises, and we're really looking forward to a lively exchange today. For those watching online who'd like to contribute to the discussion, there are no less than 3 social media hashtags. They are Model Council, all one word, capital M, capital C for Council. Migration EU, all one word, capital M for migration, capitals for EU. And finally, European Year of Youth, all one word, capital E for European, capital Y for year, and capital Y for youth. So please engage with the hashtags, have your say, and I would really encourage you to give your comments. I'd also like to pay tribute to all the students and teachers who have worked so hard to prepare for today's debate. You are the centerpiece, and we really appreciate your input. I would also like to thank the EU member states ambassadors for their support over the last few weeks. Many of you have been in touch with the schools representing your countries to provide guidance and encouragement to students. So thank you for that. Today's debate will be chaired by Martina Fitzgerald. Martina is the CEO of Scale Ireland, the independent not-for-profit organisation that represents Ireland's tech, startup and scale-up companies. Martina, of course, will be familiar to many of you as the former political correspondent of RTE. Our debate judges who are giving generously of their time today are Brian Killoran, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Immigrant Council of Ireland, Stephen O'Shea, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the European Movement Ireland, and finally, from my own staff, Grace Bolton, who is Head of Press at the European Commission representation in Ireland. Thank you. Thanks to you all. After the judges reveal the winning teams later on, Maria Walsh, a member of the European Parliament for Midlands Northwest constituency, will make a short closing speech. I would like to wish all the students competing today the very best of luck. Be bold, be brief, and I hope that you will be able to find a solution to one of Europe's most intractable problems. I would now finally like to introduce Senator Lisa Chambers, who will formally open the debate. Senator Chambers is the Deputy Leader of Seanad Éireann and Fianna Fáil Group Leader in the Seanad. She is Fianna Fáil's spokesperson on foreign and European affairs and is the chair of the Seanad Brexit Committee. Senator Chambers, it's over to you.
Barbara, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. You're all very welcome, and I would like to welcome you to this year's debate, the Model Council of the European Union, and also to pay tribute to the European Commission representative in Ireland, and also the European Parliament Liaison Office for organising what promises to be a fascinating and impressive debate between some of Ireland's best and brightest students. I'd like to especially acknowledge Dean's Rath Community College, who stepped in last minute to represent Sweden, replacing Clogher Road Community College, and to wish them well. I have no doubt, as Barbara has alluded to, that the situation in Ukraine is weighing heavily on everyone's minds today, and I would like to briefly address this if I can. I know that I can speak for everyone when I say that we send our love and solidarity to the people of Ukraine. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, a sovereign democratic country, is abhorrent, and we hope that peace and stability are soon restored to Ukraine. Ireland, as a country and as a member of the European Union, must do all that we can to stop this unlawful aggression by Russia and help the Ukrainian people to protect their country. Turning now to today's debate, as we know, it is a simulation of a meeting of the Council of the European Union. So you must put yourselves into the shoes of the country's leaders that you represent. The European Union works by agreement, which may sound simple, but in reality is very difficult to achieve when you are trying to bring together 27 different countries with sometimes differing values and often competing and differing agendas. Reaching agreement involves finding common ground that works for everyone and also involves compromise. Sometimes we have to nudge each other towards that space to compromise, recognizing that there is a bigger picture and that we are together in a block for a reason, because we are stronger together. This year's topic for the debate is migration, and I think it is indeed very timely when we consider what is happening in Ukraine and elsewhere at European Union borders, like Greece and France, for example. With people fleeing conflict and the impact of climate change, this issue is going to continue and is going to increase. I know that all of our students will have done considerable research, working with the different embassies for the countries that you're representing to assess where your country stands on the issue of migration and what view they might take in terms of the solidarity mechanism which you're looking at as part of the new Pact on Asylum and Migration. Students will have learned why such a solidarity mechanism is needed. Not every member state is equally affected by migration. Other member states that are on the borders of the European Union are facing the biggest burden. But because we're all members of the European Union, we should shoulder that burden collectively and assist one another. And that's why the new Pact is so important. With rising migration because of climate and conflict, migration has the potential to destabilize the European Union if we don't manage it correctly. And this has been recognized by all of the country's leaders, that this is something that we have to get to grips with and we have to manage collectively and together. So at the heart of this policy on asylum and migration is fairness, that every member state works together and is treated fairly and equally. And if we do that, we will manage migration as what promises to be really the biggest challenge that the European Union will have to deal with in the coming decades. Some of the schools in this debate will have to take a position which they won't necessarily agree with personally, and this can be a challenge. You must debate and argue passionately from the perspective of your country and be as persuasive as you can, because in order to win the debate, you have to persuade and convince others in the room to adopt your position. And if you believe in that position, it certainly helps, but it will be a challenge if you don't. In participating in this debate, you will gain an insight and an experience into what it is like for our country's Taoiseach and our country's government to represent Ireland at these debates at EU level. And you'll have no doubt learned that it's not simple and that it's not easy. And I want to acknowledge that by being one of a small number of schools participating in this year's debate, that in itself is an achievement. To be here today representing your school. I do have to acknowledge my own local school of Ballyhonus Community School, one of the Mayo schools participating in today's debate. I am myself from and living in Mayo, so it's a huge honour to see a local school in the debate today. Before I finish, can I ask all of the students to raise your flags on screen? The organisers would like to get a picture of all of you with your flags on screen. Barbara, is the photograph taken? Great, I think we'll take it that the photograph is taken and you can lower your flags. Students, I just want to wish you well today. Be persuasive, be bold, argue strongly for your country. That passion that you bring to the debate today will be the deciding factor in who is successful in winning. But just want to say finally again that simply by participating today is a huge achievement. And I know that you're doing your school and the school community and the area that you represent really proud. and to all of your parents and the teachers watching on, to commend them as well for supporting you and participating in today's debate. I only wish that when I was in secondary school that we had the opportunity to do something like this. I think it would have been fantastic, and I know you've probably really enjoyed the process. And to thank as well all of the ambassadors and the embassies that have assisted you in your work to date. So what I'll do now, students, is hand over to your chair today, Martina Fitzgerald, who will take over proceedings from now. Martina?
Thank you, Lisa. And just to say, you have certainly focused everyone on the task ahead, and we all echo those sentiments. Good morning, everyone, and I'm delighted to be chairing this morning's virtual Model Council of the European Union. Secondary schools from around the country will be representing the 27 EU member states. And now more than ever, as Lisa has said, we have all seen the importance of the European Union and its decision-making process on the international stage. Now, this morning, you will be debating a mock regulation to establish a mechanism for solidarity between EU member states to address situations where thousands of people have fled their countries to Europe, and EU countries are coming under pressure as a result. And as Lisa said, it's very important and it's a very timely proposal. Now, the first part of the debate will run until 10:15, and each school will be given 1 minute to make their opening statement on the proposal. And each school will speak according to the order of the list provided to everyone, which starts with Czechia and Sweden and ends with France, and also now Estonia, because I know they are experiencing some broadband issues. I would like to advise everyone to keep to the 1 minute that has been allocated to your school for this section of the debate. To help you, there will be an on-screen timer, so there is absolutely no excuse. I would also like to ask everyone to unmute your microphone when you start speaking, and then to mute it when you finish. And by the way, just in case you forget to mute after speaking, the microphones are controlled centrally, so it will be done for you. And finally, good luck. The very best of luck to everyone. This is a great opportunity for you, as Lisa has just mentioned. So without further ado, we are going to start proceedings, and I'm going to ask Czechia, which is being represented by Ballyhonus Community School, to have the honour of starting proceedings and to make their opening statement. Czechia.
Dobry den, fellow delegates, administrators, and judges. Adam and Anna here from Ballyhonus Community School, and we are representing the Czech government. We are opposed to excessive asylum seekers or migrants entering our country based on the principle of maintaining economic sovereignty. As a Central European nation, we have shouldered a disproportionate amount of Europe's burden in struggle with this crisis. Our systems and infrastructures for dealing with this migratory pressure, as defined in Article 2 of the regulation, are under siege and long past breaking point. Our country's migration policy is based on the key principles set out in our foreign policy document number 55, which predates our entrance to the EU and upholds our sovereign right to protect our economic well-being and establishes the primacy of Czech government's control over foreign policy issues. The Czech government cannot agree to the regulation, as the solidarity measures included in Article 3 are far too burdensome on our already overstretched resources. Funds suggested in Article 9 to cover these costs are derisory in comparison to the real cost of dealing with our economic sovereignty and low unemployment rate of 2% of the Czech government. We will not adopt the regulation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Czechia, for starting proceedings. And now we're going to move to Sweden, which is represented by Deansrath Community College. And I know that you stepped into this very late, so you're very welcome aboard. So over to Sweden.
Good morning. My name is Lily May, and I, alongside my colleague Oshin, are representing Sweden in this proposal of a regulation of the European Parliament and of the Council on Asylum and Migration Management. I would like to warmly welcome our fellow member states. Firstly, I would like to clearly outline our country's standpoint, particularly applicable to Article 3 and Article 6. Our priority is to create an effective, legally secure, humane solidarity system. By having a system such as this, a protection of the right to asylum is made. It also leads to a more even distribution of asylum seekers within the EU, and ensures that a member state that is exposed to high migratory pressure receives effective support. With that being said, We would like to offer our help to Ukrainian citizens by proposing a joint effort to Poland due to geographical convenience. Currently, our country is in no risk of migratory pressure and has not experienced it. We are passionate about this and wish to support our European neighbours.
Thank you very much, Sweden. And now we are moving to Spain, and Loretta Kilkenny, can you make your opening statement, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, in the past hour, 5 irregular immigrants have arrived in Spain. In the past day, 115. And in the past year, 42,000. After hearing this, you will agree with me that Spain is clearly under migratory pressure. We're the door to Europe for most irregular migrants coming from Africa. We're particularly exposed to migratory pressure as we have 2 autonomous cities in the north of Africa, and the Spanish coast is only 14 kilometers away from Morocco. This is a very concerning issue for our country, as we don't have enough resources to take all these people in and give them a better life. This is why Spain predominantly supports this regulation, especially regarding the sharing of the relocation of migrants to other EU countries, as well as an EU fund for reception infrastructure. No country can help its geography, nor what happens to its neighbours, as our friends in Poland, Slovakia, Romania and Hungary have learned in the last week. We all need to stand with each other when crisis happens, as this is the core philosophy of the EU. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Spain. And we've had some very strong contributions already. We're now turning to Belgium and Hartstown Community School for your opening statement.
Thank you, Spain. Belgium believes in the cornerstones of cooperation, support and solidarity that the European Union was built on. These beliefs are important now more than ever with these current crises. We are here to achieve consensus on the solidarity mechanism for migration. Article 15 of Dublin 3 put the responsibility and sole burden of processing and housing migrants on border countries. Belgium sympathizes with member states like Poland, Italy, Hungary, and Greece, facing the brunt of migratory pressure. We implore delegates to vote in agreement of this mechanism, amending the shortcomings of the current system and promote shared responsibility. Delegates, we can all agree that this is a problem with how migration is handled as it stands. We urge member states to work together. Migrants are people, not numbers.
Thank you very much, Belgium, with that sentiment there. And now we are moving to Hungary and Loreto Secondary School in Fermoy. Can you please give us your opening statement?
Good morning, delegates, chairperson and spectators. As the delegates for Hungary, with regard to our own government's opinions and views, we disapprove of this proposal.
Our government has made it clear in the past that free migration for those not facing a threat from their own country is not something we support.
However, we recognise the current situation in Ukraine as a major danger to those fleeing the war there. And so, as we share a border with Ukraine, we are open to migration between our countries, as outlined in Article 3, which we also agree with.
We have faced major migratory pressure in the past and have made it clear since then that this is not something that we wish to face again.
We understand the viewpoint of the EU, but we simply do not agree with this proposal. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Hungary, for making your point very succinctly. We are now moving to Poland and Ballantyre Community School. Poland, can you make your opening statement?
Dzień dobry, witamy z Polski. Greetings. Poland does not agree with the proposed legislation due to our current immigration policies, namely the right to determine what happens within our borders without interference from the EU.
We are grateful for all the benefits of the EU, but we believe this is a step too far and should be discussed and solved on a national level rather than EU level. We believe it is incredibly inappropriate to take away our country's right to control who can and cannot enter our country. However, in dire crisis like we are now, we will compromise to allow immigration from Ukraine in. But without crisis, we believe this is a national infringement of our rights to determine who gets into our country itself. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Poland. We are now moving to Denmark and to Enniscorthy Community College. So can you start and give us your opening statement?
Greetings. We are Daniel Power and Elizabeth Wallow from Enniscorthy Community College in Wexford. We will be representing Denmark and the Danish government in this matter. We would like to highlight Denmark's proposals, being that we want to move away from spontaneous asylum. as well as transfer to asylum reception centres outside of the EU. We understand that each member state has their own needs, which must be taken into account during this decision-making process. In Denmark, asylum applications have been increasing and decreasing over the years. They've gone from 3,000 in 2011 to 21,000 in 2015 and back down to 2,000 this year. But our issues here is that we do not agree with the proposal unless serious changes have been made. We will be willing to compromise, but our main stance is that there are too many issues with this proposal.
Thank you very much, Denmark. And we now have very mixed views on this proposal so far on this, but the word consensus coming through there. We are now moving to Cyprus and Dunshaughlin Community in Meath. Dunshaughlin.
Yeah, ready. Hello, I'm Killian and this is my partner Luke. We are from Dunshaughlin Community College and we are representing Cyprus in this debate. Today, we are going to discuss how Cyprus would cope with the proposed legislation. While we do agree with asylum migration, we feel that the management of such is vital in a geographically burdened country like Cyprus. Throughout the proposed legislation, plans are laid out for how countries are aided in dealing with migrants. While these supports favour the majority, they don't take into consideration countries such as Cyprus that are situated in close proximity to countries like Syria and Lebanon that have a huge immigration rate. Cyprus is the direct entryway for many migrants looking to flee countries in turmoil and find safety. Cyprus receives a vast number of migrants that is not at all relative to its size, with already receiving over 700 applicants this year so far. With this number of applicants, the solidarity contributions outlined in Article 3 will be pivotal for Cyprus to agree to this regulation. Ultimately, Cyprus neither has the infrastructure nor the size to handle this massive intake.
Thank you very much, Cyprus, another country receiving many migrants. We are now moving to Ireland and, of course, to Ordscoil Rees. Can we have your opening statement, please?
Díobh a history. Ireland welcomes all discussion in relation to asylum and migration policy. We believe that all EU countries have a unified responsibility to do their fair share on migratory issues. However, we have concerns around Article 6, Annex 1, which states that Ireland is taking in 0% of the refugees in the Fair Share Agreement. Due to our unique position of having a common travel area with the UK and a shared open border with Northern Ireland, we cannot opt into this agreement. However, the figure of 0% does not give an accurate account of Ireland's contribution. Through the Irish Refugee Protection Programme, Ireland has committed to welcoming 2,900 Syrian refugees between 2020 and 2023. And most recently, Ireland has dropped visa requirements for Ukrainian citizens whilst making preparations to receive up to 20,000 Ukrainian refugees. We are fully committed to extending a unified Céad Míle Fáilte to migrants in collaboration with our European counterparts. Gurv Mahagwiv.
Thank you very much. And now we are moving to Lithuania, which is represented by Portula Community School. Can we have your opening statement, please?
Lubas, Chairperson, President, and fellow ministers. We are Lithuania. Half of our border connects with non-EU countries, making us a gatekeeper for the EU. We welcome the chance to work together to tackle the new hybrid challenges of migration affecting our union and its people. Every day, vulnerable refugee seekers are instrumentalized by smugglers, profiteers, and regimes that look to benefit from the destabilization not only of our country, but of the European Union itself. Lithuania salutes the spirit and sentiment of the regulation we are here to debate. Yet our people and Parliament want the regulation to address new realities. Lithuania, along with 11 other EU nations, believe this regulation does not go far enough and needs urgent attention to be fit for purpose. We want to adapt this regulation. The crisis in Ukraine demands we work together to make this work. Thank you for listening.
And thank you very much, Lithuania. We're now moving to Greece and St. Farnan's Post-Primary School. Can we have your opening statement? And you're very welcome here.
Madam Chairperson, distinguished judges, fellow speakers, Kalimera, good morning from the Greek delegation. My name is Cheyenne, and together with Aoife, I would like to begin by saying that we are truly very happy to be with you this morning and speak about this topic, which is of such critical and timely relevance to our country. The Hellenic Republic has much to contribute to this debate today. Data from 2019 shows us that Greece had hosted over 186,000 refugees and asylum seekers, including over 5,000 unaccompanied children. These are large numbers, similar to Cyprus. Last September saw the opening of the first 5 new migration centres being built, with over €276 million in EU funding to improve living conditions for asylum seekers. In the majority of cases, these people, if returned to their country of origin, would face the risk of serious harm, as defined in Article 2 of the regulation being discussed today. We do not agree that the EU's focus should be on relocating these people back to where they have made enormous efforts to escape. The focus should rather be on ensuring their safety and integration into an inclusive and caring Europe. Chaz Efcharisto, thank you from the Greek delegation.
Thank you very much, Greece. And we are now moving to Italy and the King's Hospital School. Can we now have your opening statement?
Distinguished guests, fellow delegates, good morning. My name is Nikki, and alongside my partner Clodagh, we will represent Italy in this debate. You've already heard from our friends in Cyprus and Greece of the devastating effects of mass immigration on countries' economies. We have discussed and researched the migrant crisis in Europe, along with Italy's views on the migrant crisis in relation to the migration proposal, and we feel that we can accurately give Italy's views on this. In 2016, Italy spent €1.7 billion on taking in migrants claiming to be refugees. We feel that this massive figure is not only due to Italy being the gateway to Europe for many, but also the lack of solidarity among its fellow member states. To pay this monumental fee, they looked to the EU, but only received 46.8 million. In other words, the EU paid for 2.7% of the total cost. This is not equitable and has put Italy under a lot of financial and migratory pressure in recent years. Italy also hosts around 41% of displaced persons living in reception facilities across Europe and an estimated 491,000 undocumented migrants. We bear most of the responsibility for the welfare, leading us to feel overwhelmed in this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Italy. And I think many people raising issues in general about the pressures that they are facing. We are now moving to Latvia and to the Manor House School. You are very welcome this morning.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honourable members. We are privileged to be here today. We're representing Latvia. Our member state is likely to come under migratory pressure as defined by Article 2. The harrowing war between our neighbouring countries, Russia and Ukraine, have left us in a state of unrest for all involved. We are currently experiencing a migrant crisis due to this conflict and the tensions in Belarus. In addition, we're receiving an influx of illegal immigrants to our borders from Belarus. Latvia agrees with the solidarity contributions and the principles proposed in Articles 3 and 6, but may need additional supports. Unfortunately, our state's road and railways are not adequate for either economic or military needs. We are still suffering the repercussions from our recession in 2008, and a second recession is predicted for Latvia in the coming years. We require more financial aid, which would enable us to take in more migrants, or at the very least relocate them to a safer place, as it is our duty to do so, but unfortunately we lack the funding and military backing at present. We are still suffering from a legacy of trauma from exposure to war, so can relate to the situation in Ukraine and want to help in any way we can. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Latvia. And we're delighted that you can hear us at present. Great. We are now moving to Luxembourg and John Scotta's secondary school. Can we have your opening statement, please? Luxembourg.
Good morning. We in Luxembourg do agree with this proposal and we are in favour of it. Migration is a positive phenomenon. Luxembourg migration issues have surged in the aftermath of the Syrian war. This was the beginning of migration pressures. In 2014 to 16, we've had a huge influx of refugees and we most certainly have tried our best to do our part. In the Second World War, Luxembourg was a battleground. The older generations have memories of the war area, so they know how it feels having to flee. This is just one of the many reasons why our country strives for the intake of immigrants. In 2019, we counted around 2,000 asylum applications. Of the 1,200 decisions taken in that year, nearly 57% were positive. This is quite a lot based on our size and population. Remember, us member states contribute accordingly to our size, not by quotas, and this is the way it should be. In 2021, it was recorded that almost 300,000 out of the 630,000 people in Luxembourg were in fact foreign nationals. This further proves my point that we as a country do take in a vast number of immigrants. Over 85% of our population agree that this is a good thing. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Luxembourg. We are now moving to the Netherlands and Kalosh de Kieran.
Goedemorgen. We, the delegation of the Netherlands, wholeheartedly agree with our friends in Luxembourg and are strongly in favour of the proposal which welcomes cooperation amongst member states. In addition, we would like to add that our country stands for a just, humane and effective asylum and migration policy, and we strongly believe that this regulation consists of the preceding principles. Like many of us here today, we seek to manage migration as effectively as possible and increase our control over who enters the Netherlands, who may stay, and who must return. As a country with a long and certainly proud history of providing refuge, we are adamant that there is always room in the Netherlands for people who are fleeing from war, violence, and persecution. Our ideal migration policy rests on two parallel pillars which must be implemented simultaneously and in a coordinated manner. On the one hand, improving and strengthening procedures for legal migration, and on the other hand, limiting irregular migration, combating negative effects and abuses associated with migration, and of course, promoting return in cases of unlawful residence. The 2015 figures of displacement will almost certainly be surpassed as a result of Russia's criminal invasion of the Ukraine. We must ask ourselves, are we prepared for this? Will the measures we currently have set in place suffice? We in the Netherlands feel that more effective and smarter cooperation within the EU will be crucial and will certainly prepare us for whatever challenges may arise. And we feel that this proposal can provide exactly that. Thank you, Val.
And thank you very much, the Netherlands, speaking there about a coordinated response. At an initial read so far, I think member states are evenly split on the proposal. But let's now continue and go to Slovakia and Drumshambo Vocational School. Can we have your opening statement, please?
Greetings to the other delegates and the member states. We would like to begin by saying that we agree with this regulation. While the Slovakian Republic has not faced issues with migratory pressure in the past, we feel that the recent influx of Ukrainian refugees will put severe strain on both our countries and other nations bordering Ukraine. These people need to be provided sufficient accommodation, and we hope that through this regulation, we may do so quickly and fairly. However, we believe that the return scholarship sponsorships detailed in the solidarity contributions are unethical. Returning innocent refugees to conflicts and conditions they strive to escape from seems morally wrong, and perhaps should make us question the inherent asylum we claim to provide. We also feel that the annex seen in Article 6 must be liable to regular analysis and change to accommodate the ever-shifting global competition of talents seen in the migrant workforce. Thank you for your time.
And thank you very much for your time, which is in time. Okay, we're now going to Malta and Kaloshta Nanonagel. Can we have your opening statement, please?
Good morning, everyone. We at Malta strongly welcome the new proposal. Being the world's 10th smallest and 5th most densely populated country in the world, we are not new to migratory pressure defined in Article 2. We strongly approve the solidarity contributions outlined in Article 3, as well as the points made on the fair share of responsibilities in Article 6, as this gives each of the member states a flexibility option to choose an option that best suits their economic capacities, while ensuring that the burden is equally distributed between each of the member states. We deal with one of the highest numbers of refugees per capita in the EU, and one of the highest numbers of irregular migrants arrivals as a percentage of our small population. We ask on each of the member states here today to show solidarity and compassion towards these people in need and help them collectively as a capable and cohesive European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. Thank you very much, Malta. And the last few contributions have been in favour of the proposal. We're going to return to Estonia at the end, but we're now going to move to Bulgaria and St. Joseph's Secondary School in Rush. So can we have your opening statement, please?
Good morning, Chairperson Fitzgerald, Senator Lisa Chambers, and fellow member states. We are Nicole and Senan, and we as Justice and Home Affairs Ministers representing the member state of Bulgaria are in favour of the regulation on asylum and migration management proposed. The current trend of migrants seeking asylum is a pressing concern. However, the current measures are not sufficient and require immediate review. As members of the European Union, our core values are to promote peace whilst offering freedom, security, and justice.
Given the current global trends in migration and conflict which has emerged closer to home in Ukraine, we have offered this freedom, security, and opportunity to find peaceful settlement during war to our neighboring country, Ukraine. As our President Rumen Radev stated last week, I turn to all Bulgarians in Ukraine and all Ukrainian citizens who wish to seek asylum in Bulgaria. We are open. We support the notion made to this debate today and want to be an important ally in upholding European values and human rights of those who are most at risk, especially at these times. Thank you.
And thank you, Bulgaria, and also citing there what is happening in the Ukraine. Can we now move to Austria and step aside, Educate Together Secondary School? Can we have your opening statement, please?
Fellow delegates, chairpersons, and other accompanying officials. Over the past 10 years, we, the Austrians, have taken hundreds of thousands of refugees and asylum seekers. And we, the delegates of Austria, believe that this regulation would put unnecessary strains on the Austrian economy and would be a burden on the Austrian people. Therefore, as delegates of Austria, we do not accept Article 6 and Article 7, number 5. We believe that these articles and subsections would be detrimental to the Republic of Austria. A so-called fair share of responsibility seems in no way fair to the Austrian nation. Austria has not yet recovered from previous migrant intakes, and so therefore requests that we be excluded from this regulation, similarly to Ireland and Denmark. Although, of course, we will accept Ukrainian migrants based off of the Temporary Protection Directive and not through the regulation. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Austria. We are now moving to Romania and St. Augustine's College. Can we have your contribution, please?
Good morning, Chairperson, judges, and fellow speakers. On behalf of Romania, we agree with the solidarity contributions proposed in Article 3, but we would ask that the EU provide financial assistance and support to Romania in order for us to achieve these goals, particularly the infrastructure goals, as a country that shares a border with Ukraine and is currently struggling with a huge number of migrants. Romania has taken in over 44,000 migrants in the past week. It is likely that we will be under pressure to take in further migrants in the coming weeks. We will need assistance from fellow EU countries in order to manage this huge task and provide proper aid to the people of the Ukraine. Romania also agrees with the principle of Article 6. We believe that it is only fair that the countries that have been bearing the brunt of the work should get some reprieve. However, we need other EU countries to assist us with the current migration crisis Romania and its neighbouring countries are dealing with. We would ask that the distribution of migrants be based on the GDPR of each country so that no country would be burdened with more migrants than they could manage. Thank you for listening.
And thank you very much, Romania. We're now moving to Finland and to St. Leo's College in Carlow. We're looking forward to hearing your contribution now.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Anna, and today I'm here with you to discuss why Finland agrees that the European regulation establishes a mechanism for solidarity between EU member states and addresses situations where member states are exposed to or likely to be exposed to migratory pressure. As you are aware, our world is facing what is said to be the biggest humanitarian crisis of the century. Migratory pressure, as defined in Article 2, is being faced by all countries across the EU. In particular, Finland is severely impacted by Russian migrants fleeing their country and seeking refuge or travelling through Finland. Prior to this, in 2015, we faced another surge of refugees from Syria and had a record number of asylum seekers reaching over 32,000. Finland has always welcomed refugees and has fulfilled its national quota as set out by the EU Commission. It is evident by our communities that Finland needs, wants, and relies on working refugee age group. Finland understands that we need refugees just as much as they need us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Finland. And we are now moving to Croatia and Nordskola Trinidad. I hope I pronounced that correct. Over to you.
Dobro utro, delegates, Madam Chairperson, and esteemed judges. We in Croatia would like to express our staunch support for this proposed regulation. We believe, especially in unprecedented times like these, that EU initiative must be taken to monitor and facilitate the movement of migrants and asylum seekers in a just way that benefits all parties involved. As a country that has previously experienced migratory pressure due to our proximity to the Mediterranean and Middle Eastern conflict zones, we would benefit tremendously from this regulation, notably through Articles 3, 6, and 7. Furthermore, we anticipate a substantial amount of refugees arriving at our borders due to the recent conflict in Ukraine, along with its other bordering countries, which may potentially require more supports. Croatia prioritizes the safety of migrants and asylum seekers, and we believe that this regulation would help us and member states in similar positions to ours with limited resources to ease the migratory pressure that we may experience, while at the same time prioritizing the safety of all parties. Thank you for your time. Follow on.
And thank you for your time, and again in time, which is great. We're now moving to Germany and Christ King Secondary School. You are very welcome here this morning. Can we have your opening statement, please?
Hello and good morning to our fellow honourable member states. Germany fully supports the proposal as it will enable us to come to a united approach to the ongoing refugee crisis. Germany agrees with the solidarity contributions outlined in Article 3 and feels that the relocation rule would be extremely beneficial in regards to relocating some of the Ukrainian immigrants out of their neighbouring countries to relieve the migratory pressure that they are under. Germany has always been and will always be willing to take in migrants from all walks of life. However, Germany would like to recommend an amendment for an extension of the time period stated in number 4 of Article 6 from 5 years to 7 years, so that the 2015 European migrant crisis is included, a time when certain countries, such as Germany, took in extensive amounts of applications. Overall, this proposal will allow all of us member states to tackle the current refugee crisis the right way, as a united union. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Germany. We are now moving to Portugal and St. Mary's College. You're very welcome this morning, and can we have your opening statement?
We, the Portuguese Republic, affirm the regulation on asylum and migration management. It is in our great interest that the European Union has a complete overhaul of the Dublin Agreement by focusing on the humanitarian aspects of the issue, along with a cooperative and efficient system. Geographically, Portugal faces the Atlantic Ocean, thus our eyes are open to the world. As a country with a population made up of around 10% foreigners, the migration of thousands has always been and continues to be a source of enrichment. We also firmly believe that we must welcome people who are seeking asylum with an integrated community that is respectful of each person's cultural roots. However, we realize that today's topic is a sensitive issue. We wish to respect all member states' red lines and the humanitarian rights of asylum seekers. Forced relocations are never our goal. Therefore, instead, we support the idea of flexible yet compulsory solidarity between member states outlined. In light of recent events, now more than ever, we need an organized system to protect the interests of migrants, member states, and everyone in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Portugal. We're now moving to Slovenia and the Mercy Secondary School in Mount Hawk. Can we have your contribution, please?
Greetings, fellow member states. We in Slovenia would like to start off by commending the Parliament on a proposal tackling a very present and ongoing issue in Europe. As of today, we are of course facing the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Slovenia stands in complete solidarity with Ukraine. To reference Article 2, subsection E, Slovenia is a country that has in fact experienced immense migratory pressure in the past. Slovenia is a frontline country, and with Hungary closing their borders in 2015, this exacerbated the issue. When Slovenia joined the EU in 2004, we adopted the EU migrant policy, but believe that a balance between responsibility and solidarity is vital. We disagree with Article 6 in being dictated a fair share of migrants, but even more so, we disagree with how this fair share will be calculated. While we are in favour of what this proposal is trying to achieve, we have a few fundamental terms that we have found fault with, which cannot allow Slovenia to agree with this proposal unless amendments are made. In this given time, Slovenia are willing to compromise to do what we can for Ukraine and offer our complete support. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Slovenia. And you and other countries have mentioned a number of amendments reflecting what happens in real life as well. We're now moving to France and Swords Community College. France, you're very welcome. Can we have your opening statement, please?
Good morning, adjudicators, fellow member states and spectators. My name is Kira, and both Evan and I represent France. We agree with the regulation and the proposed solidarity contributions, as we feel that France is at risk of migratory pressure. This is due to the reports on the refugees and immigrants taken in by France increasing as the years go by. For example, 6.7 more immigrants in 2018 than 2017, and a 10.7% increase to over 407,000 from 2018 to 2019. The solidarity contributions will be used to fund transport to help relocate or return refugees and immigrants when it is safe to do so. We hope that the contributions will allow for us to provide partial or full funding of transport. We feel that this is a necessary use of the solidarity contributions due to our high percentage of relocations and return sponsorships, a percentage of 10.15. Thank you.
And thank you very much, France. And we had hoped to go to Estonia, which was experiencing broadband issues, but unfortunately, they have not been able to sort those out. So we won't be able to go to Estonia, but we do want to pay tribute to Maynooth Post-Primary School for taking part and hoping to take part in their preparation. Now, and hopefully we'll be able to do it in person next year when this won't happen. Now, I want you to listen very carefully because that now concludes the first part of today's debate, and thank you everyone for your opening statements. We're now going to move to the next section, which will run up to 11 o'clock when we will take a short break. So from now until 11, and just to listen very careful to this next section before you do anything, each team can indicate in the chat room function on your Zoom screens if you would like to speak and provide more details about your national position. For instance, if you would like to make a comment or ask a question to another member state. If you want to speak, all you have to do is to type the name of your member state in the chat box. But first, we will then list the countries that are going to speak next. And I'm going to limit the number of contributions from each country to 2 during this section to ensure that we get to everyone. I think that's only fair. So please abide by this, as we have 27 EU member states, or 26 now, and we want to hear from everyone. So again, your school has only 2 opportunities to put the name of your country into the chat room and to ask to make a contribution in then. And this is really about the quality now of your contribution. And that is so important, not the quantity. So I want you to think about that. And also for this part of the debate, you will have just 45 seconds to make your point. So please watch your time. And remember to unmute your microphones as before while you were speaking, and then to mute them again afterwards. And I would really like to encourage everyone to make a further statement. So let's now look at where we are. I am trying to get to the very top of the chat room. You have been very, very quick. So we're going to Estonia, Greece, Spain, and Finland. To Estonia, Greece, Spain, and Finland. So they will be the first 4 that are going to make contributions. Sorry, Estonia is gone. So it is Greece, Spain, Finland, and Denmark. Greece, Spain, Finland, and Denmark. So Greece, Spain, Finland, and Denmark. I'm going to start first of all with Greece. If we have Greece on the screen, which we do. Greece, would you like to make a further contribution for 45 seconds?
Thank you to all our fellow ministers for their valuable and insightful contributions. The recently elected President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, spoke about her priorities for her mandate during her inaugural speech to Parliament. She stated that we celebrate difference in Europe because we know that makes us stronger, what makes us unique, and what makes us European. She also said that Europe is about standing up for one another, bringing our people closer together. Today, colleagues, we in Greece are very mindful that in light of ongoing migration issues, today more than ever, we need to stand together, work together, and support these people who are seeking our assistance and refuge in the safety of the European member states. As stated earlier by Cheyenne, Greece has significant experience and expertise in being central to the management of this volatile situation in the southern Mediterranean. With your cooperation and support, we will continue to play our part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greece. And now we're moving to Spain. Spain, your point, please.
Thank you. Along with relocation, we believe that a central fund should be available to fund reception centres across all member states. A central fund could be used to provide facilities such as psychological and medical supports, along with basic needs such as food, housing, and clothing. While states may offer to act as a relocation destination, the reality is that for a period, Spain will have to care for those who arrive on our shores, and this requires funds. Secondly, given the fact that over 13,000 unaccompanied minors sought asylum last year, with high percentages applying in only 6 member states, it is imperative that all member states support to these countries. Prior to relocation to other member states, these minors must be treated with compassion, taking foster care and educational concerns into consideration. Thank you.
Some very important issues raised there. We are now moving to Finland.
At present, Finland has an exceptionally good migration strategy. All asylum seekers are granted shelter, healthcare, education, and a weekly allowance which is determined by circumstances. In relation to Article 3C, Finland has established a coordination group in preparation for the filtration of Ukrainians into the country. This plan successfully worked during the 2015 Syrian refugee crisis. Malta, according to Article 6, you said you have the highest capita in the EU for migrants. According to the OECD, you do not come in the top 20. This must be revised. Finland is and always has been committed to providing international protection for those in need, as outlined in Article 6. This year, Finland are increasing their refugee quota by 50%. Finland knows that small steps bring about great change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Finland. And now we're going to Denmark. And by the way, before we go to Denmark, the next group will be Czechia, Portugal, Croatia, and Sweden. So now we are going to Denmark.
We do agree that the system within the EU is broken and something significant must be done in order to change this. So Denmark's proposal is to reform the application process. To do this, we propose that refugees must apply on both sides to make sure this is done in a legal and safe way for everyone. To help these refugees get used to and ready for the countries that they will be in, we propose that there will be fitted out centres such as old buildings or old schools that have been refurbished to help these refugees get used to the new country's culture and heritage so they can fit in. We would also propose that during their stay in these centres that they are provided with education and healthcare, and if their application is rejected from their host country, that they are helped to apply to another country for refuge and solidarity.
Thank you very much, Denmark, for some very considered points there. We're now going to Czechia. So we have Czechia, Portugal, Croatia, and Sweden next. Czechia.
As was said by Ireland, they are welcoming Ukrainian immigrants into their country free of visa. And while this is a very good thing for them to be doing to help with the war effort and to help with saving the Ukrainian people from the situation they are in at the moment, due to their geographical location, they're not going to face the same kind of pressure that Central European countries like Czechia are going to face. Our location means that more Ukrainians are going to flee to us than to you, and this is going to place us under much more pressure than it is you, and we don't think that's very fair.
And thank you very much, Czechia, drawing on your own country's experiences. We're now moving to Portugal. So Portugal, can we have your contribution, please?
So in response to Czechia and other Visegrad countries, we would like to affirm that we all should take pride in the core values established as a part of the Union's efforts for a better future. Therefore, those of us in Portugal and other member states strongly believe that there is no place for any sort of discrimination and those outside Ukraine, especially in the relocation of different nationalities. We stand by Article 8, and each member state should aim to exemplify the principles we all abide by and respect. We are well aware of the situation of high requests for international protection present in the case of member states like Czechia and Portugal, Czechia and Poland and Hungary, and thereby urge them to specifically to allow a system that would ease their migratory burden. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Portugal. And we're going to Croatia and Sweden next. And after that, we will be going to Latvia, Belgium, Germany, and Austria. But we're now turning to Croatia, please.
We, Croatia, trust that the principle of fair share of responsibility as specified in Article 6 is an integral component of this regulation. Croatia, as an Adriatic country, is geographically and historically susceptible to migratory pressure. The distribution table of fair share demonstrates tangible means to which shortfalls can be avoided. However, Article 6.3 states that member states can choose between sponsoring returns or the relocation of migrants. Croatia foresees that this choice may have an adverse impact on migratory pressure, where there's a significant imbalance of choice. For instance, if 85% of member states opt for return sponsorship over relocation, this disproportionality may cause an imbalance. In this vein, Croatia suggests that Article 6.3 be amended.
Thank you very much for your contribution and your amendment there. We're now turning to Sweden, and after that, we'll be going to Latvia, Belgium, Germany, and Austria. So, to Sweden.
In regard to Article 6 of the legislation on asylum migration management, with the Ukrainian war, we are offering help to the relocation of Ukrainian citizens from the most affected countries, such as border countries, outlined in Article 3, subsection A, as we outlined before. But we'd like to also ask Germany to join us in this effort to help with the relocation of migrants from countries struggling with migrational pressure, such as Spain and Hungary, where possible. Also, I'd like to outline that Poland, when you signed up to the EU, you were well aware that EU law took precedent over national law. I'd also like to make this abundantly clear to the other countries who are deciding to refuse this legislation. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. And some questions for other countries there. So our next batch of contributions will come from Latvia, Belgium, Germany, and Austria. We are going to Latvia now.
Thank you, Chairperson. Our migration policies offer entry, residence, transit, exit and detentions, rights of asylum, refugee status, temporary protection, and alternative status.
There's been an increase of over 1,000% in first-time asylum applicants since 2020, and 75% of these are illegal immigrants sent to our borders by the Belarusian leader Lukashenko. In 2019, we were the third poorest and most marginalized country in the EU, with a dramatic increase in the gap between the poor and the rich. We need additional funding for migrants, as most refugees coming into Latvia are illegal immigrants who we do not receive funding for. We also need to make our country more secure for Ukrainian migrants that we are disposed to receive. Our country lacks the infrastructure and the economic stability to house these migrants without monetary funding.
Thank you very much. And we are now moving to Belgium.
We are here to come to consensus on the solidarity mechanism for migration. We hear the concerns of other parties that in regards to keeping their own sovereignty, and we implore them to come to agreement in order to alleviate the burden that is being placed on border countries because of the geographical situation of Article 15. We must not overlook the fact that we, the European Union, have the power to create economic stability, whether through trade or through aid, in the countries that these immigrants are looking for here in their own home country.
And thank you very much, Belgium, for making a very succinct and clear point. We're now we'll go to Germany and Austria, and after that, just to alert everyone, we'll be going to Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, and Luxembourg. But first to Germany.
The migratory problem we face today is not going away, and it won't be going away for decades to come. If we do not do something and come together as a united union, we will be burdened by this problem for longer. We need to get this right. This problem is ever-changing, as we now see with the Ukraine migrants. I commend my colleagues who have opened their borders to Ukraine. Germany is economically one of the most resourceful member states, and we are willing to support other member states in relation to education, labour and housing during this time. Immigrants enrich our culture and boosts our economies. It's dealing with the amount of immigrants and refugees that is the problem we are faced with today. We need to put good mechanisms in place, and this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Germany. And also you mentioned a united front there. We're now going to Austria, and after Austria, it will be Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, and Luxembourg. Austria.
Thank you. To further explain our stance with Article 6, past migratory pressure from previous migrant crises, Austria, like many other countries, has not yet recovered economically and believes that the fair share policy should take this into account. Austria is aware that this issue is slightly covered in Article 6, Section 4, although the timeframe of 5 years does not cover the height of the migrant crisis in 2015 and 2016. The 2015 European migrant crisis was a period of significantly increased movement of refugees and migrants into Europe, when 1.3 million people came to the continent to request asylum, the highest yearly number since World War II. In Austria alone, over 88,000 asylum applications were issued. In 2021, Austria was the country with the second highest number of asylum applications per capita in Europe, after Cyprus. That is almost 3 times as many in Germany. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Austria. And now we are moving to Lithuania.
In response to the statement of the Minister from Poland, we Lithuanians hear your reservations about loss of sovereignty and flexibility on a national level. We too do not forget violations of our sovereignty in our living memory. Yet, facing the current crisis, instrumentalization of migrants, Eastern aggression, and a tidal wave of Ukrainian refugees, we would like to ask you this. Would we rather deal with these issues alone, or would we rather stand together? Thank you.
And thank you very much. Again, another theme of having a united front. We're now going to Romania.
Romania policy is currently, we are open to refugees from Ukraine trying to escape their war-torn country. Several crossing points are open at the border between Romania and Ukraine, such as Slovenia and Orlivka, a ferry crossing. It is also possible to enter via Moldova. We in Romania disagree with Poland, who say this policy is an infringement of their rights. It is your duty to take migrants as part of the EU community. You should support your neighbours, not hinder them with more migrants than they can take. Why do you think you're above everybody else? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are now moving to Slovakia and Luxembourg. Can I make a point that Estonia has come back in? So after Luxembourg, we will go to Estonia to make their opening statement in the interest of fairness. Slovakia, we're now over to you.
Thank you, Romania. We stand with you. We disagree with Article 4. We believe that this is an unnecessary burden. Member states under migratory pressure should get this classification automatically. This is a bureaucratic burden that delays the help that is needed immediately. We are taking in 4 times the amount of our fair share of Ukrainian refugees, and we're still not getting the help needed. This could be avoided by assigning an independent body that investigates member states under risk for migratory pressure and then initiates the measures described in Article 4, Section 2.
Thank you very much. A very clear and succinct point. We're now going to Luxembourg.
We agree with the solidarity contributions as stated in Article 3. It is so important to discuss the legal pathways to migration, because once we do so, the pressure on the other aspects of migration will ease. We provide exceptionally high quality housing and other resources for refugees. In 2016, we opened 1,000 new housing containers for refugees. Our fair share of relocations or return sponsorships, as stated in Article 6, is at 7.4%. It is quite good and not necessarily low, as some countries such as Ireland and Denmark have 0%. According to the Migrant Integration Policy Index, in the past 5 years, the average MyPEC country score increased by 2 points on the 100-point MyPEC scale. In contrast, Luxembourg led the European Union with the greatest improvements in its integration policies with an increase of 10 points. Luxembourg has developed their approach to integration by securing basic human rights for foreign and national citizens. There are 12 positive changes on the MyPEC indicators for Luxembourg, and there are no negative changes at all. Therefore, yes, we do agree with this policy, and we would like to see it implemented in the future. Thank you for listening.
And thank you very much. And before we go to Estonia, I just want to say the countries that come after Estonia will be France, Finland, Ireland, and Italy. France, Finland, Ireland, and Italy. But first to Estonia, and can I say you're most welcome. We have all been where you have been with technical issues. So welcome, and we will take your opening statement now, Estonia.
Thank you. Estonia recognises the need for Europe to move beyond the current ad hoc crisis-driven responses to migration. Estonia supports the necessity of contributions regarding capacity building and returns, stricter border control, swift returns, and the building of partnerships between countries of origin and transit will ensure more controlled response to migration. Following the outbreak of hostilities in Ukraine in 2014, Estonia has seen an increase in applications for asylum. In light of the recent invasion of Ukraine, this number is expected to increase substantially in the months ahead. However, Estonia does not support changes in the new migration and asylum package that may become migratory pull factors. Compulsory relocation, as currently outlined in Article 6, must not be ratified. Such measures must always remain voluntary for member states. Estonia has and will continue to provide logistical, material, and in-kind assistance. Financial assistance must remain non-compulsory. Estonia wishes to highlight that many migrants in the EU are illegal. We must accelerate the return of such migrants. Estonia fully supports the creation of more legal pathways to block the trafficking of migrants. My colleague will further elaborate these points.
And by the way, thank you very much, Estonia. We're delighted to have you. And by the way, you have 2 further contributions, both 45 seconds each during this section. We're now going to France, Finland, Ireland, and Italy. So starting with France.
In 2021, the French government had 1.27 trillion euros in revenue. This will undoubtedly increase. With this, and we will use our solidarity contributions to build and run facilities that will be open to use for refugees, equipped with anything they may need, food, hygiene products, clothing, etc. We feel the need to elaborate on what we'll use our solidarity contributions for to give other member states an idea of what they could use theirs for. We feel that given France's large immigrant population, that of 14% of the total population, it is hypocritical of us to not support this regulation, and so are willing to use our funds to help immigrants in any way they can, whether an accommodation or relocation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, France. We're now going to Finland again. Finland.
Latvia, we do not understand how your country lacks funding. However, you received €237 million from the RFF in 21. Cyprus, we understand that you are geographically burdened, but every country is here. We are here to discuss working together. In 2021, you submitted an application to the EU to suspend all asylum applications. How can you say you agree with the motion when you don't want asylum seekers in your country? Hungary, How can you not support the motion, yet you are willing to allow Ukrainians into your country? Every life matters, not just how we are obliged as EU nations by international human rights laws. Thank you.
And thank you, Finland. You have now made 2 contributions during this session. So we're now going to others who have not. Ireland, we're heading towards you now.
Good morning. In response to Czechia, we cannot change our geographical location. Our track record shows that our location is no barrier to our significant contribution in relieving migratory pressure in the EU. In relation to Articles 2 and 3, Ireland has 2 key concerns. 1, we challenge the definition migratory pressure. We propose an amendment to change the wording to the UN definition, pressure from irregular migration. And 2, Ireland believes that Article 3 gives governments an opt-out clause in disguise by allowing them to pay their way out of helping and not providing any actual asylum. We fundamentally oppose this. It goes against the Geneva Convention of 1951, which all countries present have signed up to. Ireland considers this a retreat from the core principles of solidarity, which have underpinned our union since its foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ireland. We're now going to Italy, and after that, we will be going to Cyprus, Greece, Spain, and Finland. Cyprus, Greece, Spain, and Finland. So to Italy first.
In response to the member states who are reluctant to show solidarity, the current crisis in Ukraine has showed us that we cannot wait for economic recovery in every member state before we act. We would like to make some further suggestions to the regulation. We suggest that the thousands of undocumented migrants sleeping rough on the external borders of the EU in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, and Turkey are registered by member states and provided with shelter and necessary services. It is not possible to manage migration in the EU without working with third countries, whether countries are part of the EU or not. We further agree with the solidarity contributions as set out in Article 3. However, we question how countries previously hostile to all EU relocation and resettlement schemes, such as Hungary, Poland, and now Austria, will be made to keep their end of the deal. So we propose strict monitoring by independent monitoring mechanism in each member state, with repercussions from the Court of Justice of the European Union for failure to abide to the terms of these regulations.
Thank you very much, Italy. And we are now going to Cyprus. So Cyprus.
So we would like to use this opportunity to note that while this geographical issue that we are burdened with faces many, such as Ukraine and Poland. Ukraine has received many sanctions, such as the one from Ireland, that does not require any Ukrainian citizens to have visas to enter the country. Although Cyprus has dealt with this issue for longer, there is no help in sight, and we have not seen any sanctions for countries that have been geographically burdened, such as us, who have dealt with the issue for longer.
Thank you very much for giving your own experience. We're now moving to Greece, and after Greece, it will be Spain. Finland has already come in twice, so we're going to skip over Finland for the moment. So it will be Spain, Slovenia, Latvia, and Poland. Spain, Slovenia, Latvia, and Poland. Okay, to Greece.
Madam Chairperson, the last regulatory point for consideration this morning is Article 6, which addresses fair share and responsibility, is significant for Greece. As indicated in the regulation documents, this issue has indeed exposed significant weaknesses and shortcomings in how we as the European Union of nations efficiently manage this flow of people in need, care for them and ensure that they are not exploited while they are at their most vulnerable. One of the EU states with the most experience and expertise in this area, we are happy to work with our partners in the EU and to lead the way in ensuring best practice and achieving better solutions. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And that is your second contribution during this round. We're now going to, in this order, Spain, Slovenia, Latvia, and Poland. So Spain.
Thank you. We remain firm on our stance that the financial onus for the relocation process must be clearly defined and fairly distributed. This approach is, the EU has a glorious tradition of regarding the needs of one to be in need of all, as demonstrated through the ethos behind the Regional Development Fund and the Maritime and Fisheries Fund. The Regional Development Fund aims to redress the regional imbalance. So we ask countries such as Czechia, Hungary, and Austria who do not agree with the solidarity contributions, is migration not a matter of regional imbalance? The EU has contributed over €147 million to the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund between 2014 and 2020. This benefits solely maritime regions. Why can the same philosophy not be applied to migration? Thank you.
And thank you, Spain. And that's your second contribution for this session. We are now going to Slovenia, who is making its first for this. So, Slovenia.
Thank you. We, Slovenia, would like to comment on Article 6. As a small country, we feel we do not have the facilities for a dictated amount of migrants. That should be determined by the governing state and not dictated by the EU. Secondly, we feel that the method used to calculate this fair share needs to be amended immediately. It should not be dependent on GDP and population. A lot more needs to be taken into account. Only 17% of Slovenia is fit for housing purposes due to deforestation. We feel that this method doesn't represent our member state in any way. Sweden, to criticize Poland today when they are the country most burdened by this morning with refugees is unfair. EU law may take precedence, but the EU is about shared responsibility and respect for national governance also.
Thank you very much, Slovenia. And we are going to Latvia, Poland, Denmark, and Slovakia next. So Latvia is up next. Thank you.
Finland, we would like to respond to your previous comment that our issue is that we do not receive funding for illegal immigrants. From Belarus, 75% of the immigrants that we receive are illegal. We do not receive funding for these. And we've accepted 67% of our required relocations. We are taking in as many migrants as we possibly can under these circumstances. We would also like to question Czechia. How can you be receiving a disproportionate amount of migrants if you've only accepted 0.45% of your relocations, as you are legally required to take 2,691 and you have accepted 12? It isn't as though you cannot afford to receive them, as a 2020 analysis from the International Monetary Fund states that Czechia is richer than Italy and Spain in terms of GDP.
Thank you very much, Latvia, coming back hot there. Okay, and Latvia, that is your second contribution during this session. We are now going to Poland, Denmark, Slovakia, and also then it will be Portugal. So Poland, over to you.
Thank you, fellow members. We hear your concerns, and in response to them, we would like to say, we've already taken in 500,000 refugees from Ukraine. We've situated these in a temporary sense, as we do not feel like this can be a long-term legislation, as we cannot predict future problems as we are currently. We have faced pressure from the UN already in recent times, which is why we are conservative on these terms. That is allowing immigration. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your time, Poland. We are now, the next few will be Denmark, Slovakia, Portugal, and Bulgaria. So Denmark, over to you. And Denmark, we just can't hear you at the moment.
We agree that something significant must be done in order to improve the system and making sure that we have a policy about helping the most vulnerable refugees who are not able to pay human traffickers to get out of the current situation. These asylum seekers who do not have the funds to pay human traffickers take dangerous routes to get them to safety. And this is what we strive to eliminate in Denmark. Due to the Danish opt-out on justice and home affairs, Denmark does not participate in the EU cooperation on border control, asylum and immigration. Therefore, it is up to the Danish government and other international conventions Denmark has committed to. However, Denmark is very active and visible in the migration debate in the EU and has indeed opted in on an intergovernmental basis in a number of EU policies.
Okay, and Denmark, thank you very much. That is also now your second contribution during this period. So we're now going to Slovakia, Portugal, Bulgaria, and Croatia. So Slovakia.
As countries like Slovenia have previously done, we would like to question the validity of the fair share of responsibility. Certain countries hold a disproportionate GDP per capita in relation to their percentage intake of migrants. The Netherlands, for instance, are responsible for 7.14% of refugees, yet maintain a substantial GDP per capita of 913.13 billion, with projections indicating this will increase until at least 2026, according to Statista.com. Meanwhile, Malta is responsible for 1.9% of the refugee intake, with a GDP of only 14.65 billion. In my opinion, the GDP does not take into account the full situation of a nation, and we must find a more fair and efficient solution to accurate.
And thank you very much. No, I thank you very much for your contribution there, and you made some very pertinent points. I am now going, so that was Slovakia. We're now going to Portugal, Bulgaria, and Croatia. So we're going to go to Portugal.
Portugal want to re-emphasize our belief that it is our duty to help migrants by providing not only refuge, but also supports in order to give them a good quality of life. In order for the EU to provide support for those seeking asylum in our member states, we need a coordinated and EU-wide response. To address countries who only want to grant Ukrainian citizens asylum during the current crisis, this will not be the last refugee crisis that the EU will face. We need to have an effective and efficient migration system in place in order to deal with unprecedented influxes of asylum seekers. This need has been demonstrated by the migratory pressure that countries bordering Ukraine are now facing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Portugal. We're now going to Bulgaria and Croatia. So Bulgaria, please, can we hear your thoughts?
Thank you. Well, we acknowledge the stance and pressure Hungary and Austria feel towards the matters discussed today. We must condemn the lack of regard for human life and basic human needs, especially given the conflict a sovereign state such as Ukraine is experiencing at the hands of Russia. How can we call ourselves EU member states if we do not uphold the principles of this title? Without legislation, how can we provide safe asylum? Not only do we need to help those in Ukraine at this time, but we also need to uphold our duty to human life from around the world. Who are we to judge the conditions people feel the need to flee from? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bulgaria. And we're now going to Croatia. And after Croatia, it will be Hungary, Malta, Netherlands, and Lithuania, some of whom are making their first contribution for this session. So we're going to Croatia.
Thank you. Czechia and other countries have expressed their disagreement with the regulation. However, we would like to reference the European Consensus on Humanitarian Aid, which all EU member states have signed. This consensus upholds the core EU values of unity and solidarity. We would like to ask member states to re-establish this consensus to prevent and alleviate suffering and help maintain human dignity in the face of natural hazards and human-induced hazards. We would also like to implore Finland to consider the financial and geographical limitations of some member states which simply do not have the resources to sustain such a large influx of migrants. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Croatia. We are now moving to Hungary, and for your first contribution during this session. Thank you very much.
Finland, Bulgaria, Spain, and all other delegates who do not understand our stance on this issue. You question why we would let Ukrainian migrants into our country when we have closed our borders since 2015. However, we have not seen such a dire number of people seeking asylum in many years. It is fair to say that the current situation in Ukraine is a total crisis that has been brought on rapidly and without warning. We suddenly feel responsible to let people into our country as a bordering country to Ukraine in this time of panic and distress. We've not seen such a strong influx of refugees since the 2015 Syrian refugee crisis, when we reached breaking point on our borders, which forced us to close them.
Thank you very much, Hungary. We've Malta, Netherlands, and Lithuania next. I would make the point that Estonia has not yet made a contribution during this session, so I would like to bring in Estonia before we close off for the break after Lithuania. So over to Malta, please.
We at Malta would like a clear pledge of solidarity from all of our member states regarding those nations that have to deal with housing thousands of immigrants. If countries like Denmark, Hungary, and Poland can say that they do not have enough money to fund for migrants, how do you expect us, a smaller country, to cope? We need to remember that we are thinking about human beings that have made a huge and desperate journey to flee from war-torn and poverty-stricken countries. We at Malta matter.
Thank you very much. Succinct and to the point. And we are also bringing in another member state who's making his first contribution during this session, the Netherlands. You are very welcome.
Hello. We believe that each individual state has a responsibility and obligation to assist each other. Geographical location, as Spain and Ireland have mentioned, should not determine how much you contribute. I would also like to ask to Lithuania, you said that the policy doesn't go far enough. How far do you think it should go? And also to Slovenia, you said that you didn't like the fair share contributions. What is your proposal of changing that, or how do you think we could fix this? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Netherlands. And now we're going to Lithuania and then Estonia. So Lithuania.
With regard to the statement of our honourable colleague from Czechia, all countries' contribution has been considered equitably in the regulation as attested by the annex to the regulation. Distribution table pursuant to Article 6. Your Prime Minister announced a state of emergency yesterday in the face of the tidal wave of refugees coming from Ukraine. This regulation allows Europe to help frontline countries like ourselves. Is that not more financially prudent? We urge you to rethink your position. Likewise, we empathise with our Finnish neighbours' frustration, yet surely we should be fighting common enemies and not each other.
Thank you very much, Lithuania. And now we're going to go, that's your second contribution during this session. We're now going to go to Estonia, and after that it will be Romania, Austria and Sweden. So Estonia.
Estonia empathizes with the Mediterranean countries who for so long have been on the forefront lines of this modern migrant crisis. We also acknowledge the need for a united Europe approach to migration and support the fair share principle of Article 6. However, we cannot help but strongly disagree with the execution. We wish to amend Article 6 to recognise all solidarity contributions as set out in Article 3, particularly with regard to capacity building and other non-financial contributions. Netherlands, we with Estonia stand with Slovakia and Slovenia, and also wishes to amend Clause 2, which pertains to the calculation of the fair shares. We advise the changing of the GDP to the European Social Progress Index, a more accurate measure of the capabilities of a country to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Estonia. And now we're going to Romania, Austria and Sweden. So Romania.
We would like to use this opportunity to compliment Ireland on their new policy to lift visa requirements between the Ukraine and Ireland. Romania is doing all we can to handle this crisis by opening our borders to over 44,000 people fleeing the Ukraine in the past week. We are giving out allowances for necessities such as food and clothing and are allowing children to attend local Romanian schools. However, we are still struggling with this huge task, and it is wonderful to know that other EU countries like Ireland are also rallying around the Ukraine. We hope that more EU countries will provide assistance in the coming weeks. I will now hand you over to my colleague who has questions for other countries.
As the Netherlands said, Slovenia, you said you were willing to compromise. How do you intend to do this? Also, Poland, it is not your right. You are legally required to take in migrants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the last few before the break, Austria, Sweden, Ireland and Malta. If you have already made two contributions through the session, I am going to prioritise those who have not. So, Austria. Can we hear you, Austria?
Okay. To elaborate onto Article 6 subsection 4, Austria believes that the 10% reduction is not enough to lessen the impact that may be had on the Republic of Austria and other nations such as Czechia, Hungary, Poland, Cyprus, Italy, and Slovakia. I would also like to respond to a statement made by the Bulgarians. May I remind you that Bulgarian authorities have been accused of mistreating refugees and asylum seekers. Do not lecture Austria on disregard for human life. And in response to Spain, migrants in Austria are supported financially exclusively out of the Austrian budget and receive no funds from Brussels. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we're moving to Sweden. Sweden.
We, Sweden, agree with Germany relating to Article 6, which proposes a fair share of responsibility, and we urge more capable countries to help us achieve an even distribution. I would like to emphasise to those we believe have missed our previous statement that to Ukraine's bordering countries, we are offering our help to you. Poland, we commend you for all you're doing for the Ukrainian citizens at the moment. We cannot change the past and how you have been affected by migratory pressure, but we now offer you our full support in any way that we can. Thank you.
And thank you. We're now moving to Ireland.
Thank you. We would like to clarify our reasons for opting out of Article 6 are very different from our Danish, Polish, Czechian, Hungarian and Austrian counterparts. As EU member countries know, we have accepted to opt out of Justice and Home Affairs to maintain our common travel agreement with the United Kingdom. This is essential to maintaining peace on our shared island with Northern Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malta, for making your point so succinctly and pointedly. Hungary.
Sorry. Slovenia stated that in 2015, they had a large... Sorry. Are we supposed to be going? Yeah.
Sorry, it's Malta. My apologies. Malta, my apologies. There are so many of you. So Malta, if you can come back to Malta, that would be great. I know Hungary are on. We could hope to get Malta and Hungary just before the break. So Malta, can we get Malta back? Malta? Okay.
I would like to start off with reminding our fellow one of the EU's core values, equality and human rights. I really appreciate the countries like Poland who oppose this proposal, yet offering their support for the Ukrainians. However, I ask each member state to avoid favoritism, favoriting to certain asylum seekers over others, as this evokes another major from Ukraine. As mentioned before, Finland, each life matters, regardless of their skin color and religious beliefs. The EU's door should be open to all needed. Our EP President, Roberta Metsola, has stated that it is clear that across Europe, whether it be in the south or east, we need a common asylum and migration system to respond to this crisis and for future ones to come.
Malta, thank you very much for your patience there, and thank you for the point that you've made. And thank you to everyone for your contributions. Now, a number of countries have already made 2 contributions in that session. Everyone has made 1, which is great. And we'll have an opportunity to make further contributions when you come back. We are now going to take a short break and we'll resume at 11:15. Now, during the break, you can switch off your cameras and your microphones and then switch your cameras back on at 11:10 so that you're ready to begin at 11:15. So this means you don't have to leave the Zoom call. You don't have to leave it. And just a gentle reminder that we will really begin at 11:15 sharp. Thank you very much. I would hate to be a judge at this moment in time, halfway through. Thank you. welcome. I want you all to listen very carefully in terms of the next section, because it will be very important. And I see you're already in the chat room, but you can hold on the chat room, because we're going to not disregard everything in the chat room for the moment. So when I invite everyone back into the chat room, they can make a contribution and they can state their country name. But for the moment, I am simply going to focus on the countries that have only made one contribution at the moment to this. So the countries who have just made one contribution, and they are Czechia, Belgium, Hungary, Poland, Cyprus, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Estonia, Bulgaria, Germany, Slovenia, and France. It's very important that we have an inclusive debate. And at the moment, we need to hear more of their voices. We've only had one contribution from them in the last sessions, and we've heard from several countries twice. So to make sure this is an inclusive debate, we are going to prioritize them first and then open the chat room. And when we open it, we'll start looking at the order at that point. And this session will last up to 11:45. I also want to stress something. It's not about the number of contributions. It really isn't. It's about how strategic and how persuasive you are during your contribution. So just remember that. You could be in 5 or 6 times and you won't have made as persuasive and convincing argument that someone who spent an awful lot of time thinking about their contribution, which is very strategic and very convincing. So that's always worth thinking about, whether it's here in this forum or in another, and whether it's at a national or local level while you are making a contribution. So without further ado, I'm going to start with those who have only made one contribution in the first part of the session, and that is Czechia, Belgium, Hungary, and Poland. So Czechia, can you make your second contribution now, please?
Latvia say that we are not taking in the required amount of migrants. We will have you know that up to 5.5% of Czechia's overall population are made up of migrants. Not to mention we have accepted many more migrants than just 12. Since the start of the Ukrainian conflict, we have taken in 20,000 people fleeing the country. New figures released in Ireland show that there is an uprising in the homeless crisis in Ireland with Irish people. If they are so welcoming to migrants, unlike our country, then why can't they look after their own people? Thank you.
Czechia, thank you for your contribution. Now going to Belgium. Belgium.
Belgium believes in our ability as EU countries to cooperate. Therefore, we would like to compromise with Italy by proposing an increase in funding for Frontex. We believe with the Commission's oversight, Frontex and the Asylum Agency would be able to support countries seeking financial aid with monitoring, search and rescue, and housing. This is a solution that we believe upholds the values of solidarity and cooperation. We would like to address the concerns raised by Austria. We sympathize with their previous influx of migrants. However, would Austria not agree that the amendment is a step in the right direction? The promotion of shared responsibility ensures that that matter will not be repeated. Therefore, we ask you to reconsider your stance and vote for cooperation.
Thank you very much, Belgium. And we are now going to Hungary and then Poland. Hungary.
Slovenia stated that in 2015, they had a large influx of immigrants and migrants due to the fact that we, Hungary, closed our borders. We were forced to close our borders due to the immense pressure of migration we were under. We were at breaking point. I would like to reiterate again, we, Hungary, are accepting all Ukrainians fleeing the war, unlike Poland, while although they said they have problems, are letting everyone in temporarily. They stated that they let in 500,000 migrants. However, they are in fact turning away Black Ukrainians. This is appalling. This is a crisis, not a time to let discriminatory values to determine who lives and who dies. We recognize the sudden crisis at hand and are playing our part as a country at this panic-inducing time. However, we put the comfort and safety of our citizens first. And this safety and security simply couldn't be guaranteed back in 2015 when the tsunami of migrants seeking safety in our country. We hope this answers your questions as to why Hungary has a restrictive approach to migration in our country.
Hungary, thank you very much. We're going to move to Poland, and then we're going to move to Cyprus, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Cyprus, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. So we're now going to Poland for their second contribution.
Hello again, delegates and member states. We believe Italy's idea of the member states registering every single migrant is simply impossible. This policy would only put further strain on many smaller member states. We believe this policy is only a hopeful idea at most, impossible to execute in reality. In response to Romania, we'd like to say we are currently taking in 500,000 Ukrainian immigrants. We are doing our legal requirement. And finally, to Sweden, we are acknowledging your support and are thankful for it. Thank you for your time.
And thank you again. And just to say to everyone, do not use the chat room at the moment until I open it up. Otherwise, I will have 50 people waiting our contributions. So we're freezing that for the moment. We are now going to Cyprus, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Cyprus, we'd like to hear your second contribution now.
Hello, we'd like to use this time to highlight the severity of our point. In a statement, the Interior Ministry claimed that asylum seekers accounted for 4% of the country's total population, which was quoted as a particularly high percentage, given that in all other member states, the percentage is close to 1%. We'd also like to note that applications increased by more than 500% between 2015 and 2019.
And thank you very much, Cyprus, for some of those statistics there. We're now going to Italy.
We would like to confront Denmark about their stance on willingness to welcome Ukrainian refugees, but yet the actions that are reprehensible of refusing Syrian refugees and externalize asylum by outsourcing protection and hosting of asylum seekers to third-party developing countries. We further question their opt-out stance.
Thank you very much. And I can see that people are batting back against other member states' points. Okay, we're now going to Luxembourg and the Netherlands, and after that it will be Estonia, Bulgaria, Germany, Slovenia, and France, and we will have completed first statements, or second statements. Luxembourg.
To Czechia. If you only support migration now, you say in a crisis, but migration has always been a crisis and always will be there. In the past, you've failed to recognize the crises that are ongoing. How does this show European solidarity? We understand now you're taking in Ukrainians, but where were you before? In many times of crisis. Poland, you're taking in refugees now, but in the past, you've let immigrants freeze on your borders. How could you stand up to your duties of being a European member? This is not showing that. In the last week, if this was last week, what would you say then? We must not take in immigrants only in times of crisis. As I said, it is a positive phenomenon. So why are so many of you opposed to this?
And in the Luxembourg there with some very strong points for other countries. We're now going to the Netherlands, and after that again, it will be Estonia, Bulgaria, Germany, Slovenia, and France to close off second statements. The Netherlands.
Hello all. Firstly, we'd like to say we agree with Italy's points in regards to Denmark and their lack of contribution. We would also like to say, in terms of Denmark's points, that you mentioned how you're willing to collaborate. How would you be willing to collaborate? Next, we would like to address Czechia's concerns in regard to your opening statement and how you mentioned that immigrants are a burden on the welfare system. The more people participating in a country's economy, the better. Economic activity is one of the many benefits of taking in refugees. Sure, of course, there is an initial investment required when allowing refugees or migrants into a country. But once refugees are established in their host country, the initial investment usually pays off. For example, in the Netherlands, my home country, we have benefited greatly from the skilled migrants from abroad. Next, I would like to say that we can't allow individual states to manage their own migration. As Austria mentioned, mistreatment and abuse of refugees has been prevalent in the past, and we cannot allow this to continue. The European Union is now more than ever under pressure to show leadership in jointly responding to the massive displacements that will likely unfold on our eastern border.
Thank you. Thank you very much, the Netherlands, because we're giving everyone a set time. So we're going to Estonia now.
Many migrants originate from countries suffering from economic downturn rather than conflict. There has been 34,100 illegal arrivals into Europe in 2020. Estonia acknowledges the need for legal pathways to tackle irregular migration, as mentioned by the Netherlands. Investing in circular migration and talent partnerships will address the acute skill shortage in Europe while also increasing capacity building in third-party countries. There's been great progress in the EU this year alone with successful adoption of the EU's Blue Card initiative. The promotion of such legal pathways will help tackle human trafficking, unauthorized movement, and irregular migration.
Estonia notes Poland's fear over the development of the Schengen Information System and Eurodac, both crucial in the trafficking and identification of illegal and legal migrants. However, Estonia, an expert in cybersecurity since our cyber attack in 2007, wishes to share our expertise with other countries. Thank you for your time.
And thank you very much for your time. Bulgaria, next up.
Austria, you've referenced the past of our country over 20 years ago and disregarded the changes of our new socialist government has worked tirelessly to implement. The world as we have seen can change at an instant, and it is about how we move forward rather than the past. We would hope you'd view the same given others' troubled past. It is essential that in 2022 and for future generations, we provide the safety we are currently striving for in Bulgaria. As a country, Bulgaria has not experienced a lot of migratory pressure as often our country is a gateway to wider Europe. However, we acknowledge that it is always a possibility in the future, especially due to current circumstances. We acknowledge the migratory pressure some of the other member states have here today experienced, but we cannot turn our backs on those in need of freedom, peace, and safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and some very considered contributions from those who are making their second now. We're now moving to Germany, Slovenia, and France. Germany.
As we have said before, we are willing to take in migrants, but we will need support in the future as Germany is constantly under migratory pressure, unlike countries who are only under migratory pressure now during the Ukrainian crisis. We should take this crisis as an awakening. Without the cooperation of all member states, we will not be able to tackle it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Germany, for coming back on those points, and Slovenia.
In response to the Netherlands, we disagree with the term fair share for a few reasons, the main one being education. Slovenia is often faced with the situation that migrants arriving do not speak the language, Slovenian, a very difficult language to learn. We need to consider the quality of life for migrants that are arriving into our country. We feel that the best way of determining how many migrants we take in is by consultation with our government and not a straight out dictation. What we disagree with most is how this is calculated. However, we agree with Estonia that the European Social Index is a far more accurate means that we feel should be included in the proposal. And we are also happy to hear that Hungary had no plans to close their borders, and we thank them for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Slovenia. I appreciate that point. Okay, next to France.
As we have stated before, we agree with the regulation proposed, but take into account the views of Denmark and Slovenia as they present valid points of concern on the regulation and the effects it may have on their respective countries, such as Denmark with their concerns on the flaws with the proposal and Slovenia with their concerns to the safety of refugees and immigrants in their country. We respectfully disagree with Estonia's point about illegal immigrants being sent back to their country of origin, as there are more alternative ways to support them that may be safer for them, as there surely are reasons that they were so desperate to leave their countries, such as war or poverty. Thank you.
And thank you, because that concludes, by the way, that section where everybody has now made two contributions. The chat room is now open. So from 11:28 is when I'm taking the first contribution. So Spain, sorry, and my chat room is on fire here as we expect. So 11:28. So Spain, Ireland, Latvia, and Slovakia. Spain, Ireland, Latvia, and Slovakia. So Spain, to you.
Austria, you claim that you haven't received funds from the EU, yet you receive a recovery fund of 450 million euro in September 2021. This is one of the various quantities of money you have received from the EU to help your country financially and economically. One of the European Union's fundamental values is equality. Equality is not being met when one country gets money to exit a financial crisis and another country is not being helped when it's suffering from migratory pressure, which is leading that country's national debt to increase. Migratory pressure concerns all of us, and we should all work together as nations to help each other and help these more unfortunate countries to prosper so that its people don't need to migrate. We agree with Luxembourg, as migration has always been a problem, especially to Spain. We have our arms open to immigrants, but we need help from other EU members. That's why we propose an EU fund for reception infrastructure and the relocation of migrants to other EU members. Thank you.
And that's a theme today, financial assistance. Ireland, Latvia and Slovakia. So Ireland up next.
Firstly, accusations regarding our domestic issues are completely irrelevant to this discussion. Next, having previously pointed out the faults of Article 3, we would like to propose an amendment to Clause B. We would like to include a provision that the return sponsorship of non-EU nationals is capped to prevent countries from shirking their responsibility to provide real asylum for migrants during this trying crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ireland. And we're moving to Latvia and Slovakia. And after that, it will be Finland, Portugal, Sweden and Croatia. But Latvia and Slovakia first. Latvia.
Thank you. Czechia, we are not asking what percentage of your population is made of migrants, and we understand the circumstances with Ukraine, and we commend your taking in of so many Ukrainian migrants. But our point was specifically about relocations, of which, I reiterate, is 0.45% of your required amount according to the EDN. And we have a question for Sweden. You claim you're willing to take in many immigrants, yet you've only accepted 13,000, which is 50% of your required relocations. Sweden is a rich country with a GDP per capita of $52,259. Your Minister for Finance has previously said that if someone in Sweden wishes to obtain financial support or financial aid, they must learn Swedish and work a certain number of hours. So you're introducing laws that are disproportionately affecting refugees, so don't appear to be as accepting as you claim. Why are you commending Poland when a number of Belarusian refugees have died at their borders and Polish are turning around people of colour at their borders, as Malta and Hungary have previously said?
And those countries will have an opportunity to respond. So we have Slovakia next, and then Finland, Portugal, Sweden, who want to respond, and Croatia. Slovakia.
We encourage the solidarity that Sweden showed towards Poland by offering help and think this should happen more. In Slovakia, for instance, we are under such migratory pressure that we are providing 1,500 soldiers to help the refugees from Ukraine enter Slovakia. Furthermore, we are prepared to set up hotspots at the border to help Ukrainians. In order to avoid a migration crisis as it happened in 2015, we feel that every member state should be preparing, showing solidarity like Sweden and helping now. Hungary, we hear your concerns, but we need to show solidarity towards Poland, who have already taken in 1.5 million Ukrainians.
Okay, and we're now moving to Finland.
We would like to address Malta's comment, and we felt the racial oppression towards our country was very unprofessional and very unwanted. A new NGO report also revealed that migrants in Croatia, Hungary and Bulgaria are being routinely mistreated by law enforcement officials at their borders. We also wish to state that we support Sweden in their stance in Article 3 and 6, as we are countries who rely on migrants and understand the small steps lead to great change. Poland and Slovenia, helping part of the European Union means you are able to abide by all the rules and regulations. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Slovenia, we would like to question how your refugee quotas will be calculated if you disagree with the guidelines of Article 6. Thank you.
And lots of questions there from Finland to other countries. Moving to Portugal.
We would like to support the views of Denmark, Bulgaria concerning migratory issues. There wouldn't be an alarming potential of human trafficking if we ensure that humanitarian approach is utilized in every situation dealing with migrants. Of course, human trafficking will probably continue to be a wider challenge that EU as a whole will have to combat, but we can lessen its abundance. The more reliable and a safer system, the more likely it is for people to trust us and therefore reduce the rate and need for illegal migration. Issues with finance in Latvia that stems from illegal refugees in several member states shall also be elevated with a more secure system in place. Estonia's gratitude to share their expertise on this is also appreciated and encourage others to be equally receptive. We must offer people a pathway of hope in a Europe that is aging. This means that we must deal firmly with human trafficking, but we must also open doors to legal migration agreements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Portugal. We're now moving to Sweden and Croatia, and after that it will be Italy, Romania, Denmark and Luxembourg. Sweden.
Along with a fair share of responsibility, there needs to also be an equal amount of effort from all EU member states. By coming to an agreement, this regulation can change and save many lives if all 27 EU member states come together. Latvia, we commended Poland for their past efforts, and we realise that our country has flaws. But at this present time, we are offering our help to Poland. We are offering our help to countries who are taking in Ukrainian immigrants and refugees, and we are continuing to try to be better. For this regulation to work, we all need to work together. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Sweden. We're now moving to Croatia.
How do we devise the most principled course of action in cases of illegal migration and migrant smuggling, all the while maintaining the fair and just treatment of migrants? Croatia understands that the solidarity contributions as per Article 6 offer comprehensive mechanisms that are flexible and applicable in various circumstances. It is through these regulations that a mechanism of management of irregular migration can be achieved sufficiently together. In agreement to Spain, psychological and humanitarian supports are essential to facilitate the integration of migrants. The Netherlands and Luxembourg offered relevant insights into the positive phenomenon of migration and the economic benefits migrants present. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Croatia. We're now moving to Italy.
I have one question. We are clearly not coming to a solution as the politics of migration is continuing to divide us. Poland, Austria, Hungary, and Czechia. What do you propose to make the regulation acceptable for us to move forward in this topic?
A very practical contribution there from Italy. Romania.
Nolan, you said that the migrant policy is a step too far and it's only a hopeful idea at the most. Is the current situation in Ukraine not a step too far also? Doesn't this emergency not call for a policy that goes further than anything we've seen before? We, Romania, believe that this policy will provide support for all countries, so we will be able to support all migrational pressures in the coming years. If we do not have hope, then how can we go forward?
Slovenia, all languages are hard to learn. That is why you should help the system integrate into your country. Language is a barrier that can be overcome. These people are willing to learn. They haven't traveled all these miles just to go home because of their language.
Thank you very much. We're now going to Denmark, Luxembourg, Belgium, and the Netherlands. So Denmark, you are up next.
I'd like to first circle back to a point that Italy made about concerns with Ukrainian refugees coming in. Yesterday, our Minister of Integration, Matthias Tesfaye, confirmed that special legislation for Ukrainians who want to enter Denmark will be brought to their government, and it's currently in the process of being passed, and this would mean that Ukrainians can now or will be able to stay longer than the 3 months allocated now. I'd also like to question Finland. You've stated that Ireland and Denmark have taken in 0% of their migrants, taken Ireland out of the equation. With the Finnish refugee quota, it shows that in 2020 you took in 1,050 refugees, whereas Denmark in 2021 took 1,526. This is no less than 476 people. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denmark. Citing some statistics there. Moving to Luxembourg, Belgium, the Netherlands. Luxembourg, please.
To Czechia, we understand that now on the onset of the humanitarian crisis of the invasion of Ukraine, you have taken in Ukrainian refugees, but this is not an excuse for the past and possible future reluctancy in the acceptance of refugees in your country. Where were you during the Syrian refugee crisis? There are currently only 1,959 refugees granted asylum in the Czech Republic, comparing to a population of 10.7 million people. In comparison, Luxembourg, which has a population of 633,275 people, took in 5,213 people granting asylum, therefore completely deconstructing the proportion immigration policy of the Czech Republic. And finally, with Poland, you have a population of 37 million people, but only took in 2,881 migrants. This furthermore underestimates your immigration policies of your country.
Thank you very much, Luxembourg. And we're now moving to Belgium, Netherlands, Slovenia, and Malta. So Belgium.
Belgium is happy to see our view that migrants are people, not numbers, being echoed by countries such as the Netherlands. We ask them to support our proposition to increase funding towards Frontex. They have the ability to identify skilled migrants and utilize their talents for the benefit of recipient countries. We implore delegates to ease their hostility and to lead with open ears, as we're here in the interest of cooperation. And to address Spain, Frontex has the ability to provide reception infrastructure.
We would like to point out the contradictory stance of Schengen member states like Poland, Austria, and Czechia advocating stringent border controls. We understand and have heard your position. However, voting yes would prevent your words from being inundated with migrants, and this responsibility would be shared by all member states.
Can I quickly appeal to the chair to facilitate a preliminary show of hands to show the current stance on this issue? Thank you.
And you will indeed a very quick show of hands to their proposal.
I think.
No, does everybody want to hear that proposal again?
Using the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. Sorry.
Yeah. we did. That was a really smart move on their part. Because now they've done over on
We can hear you. It was a smart move on their part. Okay, we are going to proceed on. There's lots of hands going up. We're going over to, because we're very conscious that we want everybody else in. Netherlands, we're moving to you now. Netherlands, Slovenia, and Malta. And Netherlands, you are on mic now.
Firstly, we would like to say that is an excellent proposal, Belgium, and we are entirely in favour of this. Next, we would like to reiterate the points made by Romania in relation to Slovenia's point that languages should dictate where country or where migrants should remain. We think this is ridiculous. If that were the case, migrants would go to countries with a similar language, or the UK or Ireland, rather than the places where they feel most safe, where they feel they will get the best quality of life. Next, we would like to briefly touch on biometric passports. These are, for most of you who know, 90-day passports where members coming to the EU, such as Ukrainians, do not need a visa. However, what happens after day 91? For the large influx of migrants who want to come, who need to come, and who should be welcome to come to the EU, I urge strongly that we will have a better impact if we do this together.
Thank you. We're now going to move to Slovenia, Malta, Austria, and Greece. We're going to try to get everyone in. So Slovenia.
Most importantly, now we feel that coming to consensus today is of the utmost importance, given that the war and the ongoing migrant crisis that will come out of it we are about to face that. Finland, you're asking what we propose to do, or what we propose to do this proposal. We propose that a more specific method be created to calculate how many migrants should be taken in. This should be based off more than GDP and population, possibly landscape, facilities, and the education system. If the other member states are willing to accept our compromise, we, Slovenia, are willing to agree with this proposal wholeheartedly. And also Netherlands, we have never stated anything about language dictating which country migrants be relocated to.
Thank you very much. We're now going to Malta, Austria, and Greece. Malta.
We'd like to start off with extending our sympathies to our countries facing migratory pressure. As mentioned before, we are well aware of this situation. For over a decade, the government of Malta has championed overhauling the EU Dublin regulation, which, as said before, places an undue burden on countries that are first point of entry for asylum seekers. Malta receives the vast majority of irregular migrants along the central Mediterranean route via Libya. Once again, we like to question Poland. How do you expect a much smaller country like Malta to cope when you're only willing to compromise for Ukrainians? Again, I ask member states to not do favoritism. Yes, we agree Ukrainians need our support. However, like Hungary have said, it should not be based on race. Let's not create an image of a racist EU, but rather an example for the world to follow of inclusion and equality. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Malta. We are prioritizing those who have not heard yet in relation to 3 statements over the course of this debate. So Austria, Greece, and Lithuania. Austria.
Thank you. To elaborate our stance on Article 7, subsection 5. Additionally, Austria believe that the 8-month period stated in Article 7, section 5 is not enough time provided to find relocation for persons concerned. Austria believe a time frame of 16 months would be more suitable. In response to Bulgaria, sources state that these accusations were not made 20 years ago, but more so in the height of the migrant crisis in 2015. And additionally, in response to Spain, the €450 million given to Austria during 2021 was not given to use freely, but to reinvest in our economy as to stimulate growth after the effects of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to Greece and Lithuania. Greece now.
Madam Chairperson, it is truly disappointing that so many member states have chosen to focus their arguments on their own situation.
And clearly everyone here around this virtual table is in a far better situation economically, socially, and politically than any of the countries from which these migrants are fleeing in desperation. Greece maintains its position to offer to lead the way in coordinating efforts and commends Slovakia, Belgium, and Cyprus for your humanitarian focus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greece. We're going to Lithuania now.
Firstly, we would like to completely commend Greece on their statement. To follow on, though, from the point made by our Slovenian colleague about the difficulty of their language, Lithuania is offering incoming refugees work. Translation for their country's women and men makes complete sense in this context. On a much more important level, the EU must place pressure on social media giants like Meta. Their algorithms are not sensitive to Eastern European languages, which allows traffickers to exploit Facebook and buy advertising offering their services. This lazy loophole must be closed.
Okay, thank you very much, Lithuania. We do have time. We're just going to allow the last two, Estonia and Czechia, to come in because they haven't made 3 comments in relation to the debate. So, Estonia, since we have you, and we're very delighted to have you, given your technical problems earlier, we'll go to Estonia.
Estonia stands with Greece, and we know without a doubt action must be taken in the current migrant issue. This is not a crisis. This did not start a week ago with Ukraine. Europe has been struggling for years, and it is important that we take action now. We reiterate that without an amendment to Article 6, we will not sign the proposal, however much we wish to do so. France, we appreciate your concern for the migrants currently drowning in your channel, but we wish to clarify too that migrants fleeing conflict are seen as legal migrants under Estonian law and are not our concern at all. We wish to provide capacity building measures in the countries of origin, addressing the root cause to result in an overall reduction in the migrant crisis moving forward instead of constantly chasing our tails.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to Czechia.
Belgium has accused us of advocating for border control, but we never spoke of that. Our border is not closed. It is now incorporated into Article 50, which provides that EU policies on border checks, asylum, and immigration must be governed by the principle of solidarity for our sharing of responsibility, including its financial implications between the member states.
Thank you.
And thank you, and thank all of you, because it has been a whirlwind, but it's not over yet. We are now reaching the end of the debate, and each member state will have a final opportunity to make their case in relation to the proposal. And this is a very important point, because if the judges have not made up their minds yet, this is the point where you can literally seal the deal. Now, I'm going to call on each school in the same order used for the opening statement. So we'll start with Czechia and end with France. And I would like to really stress to everyone that closing statements are limited to 45 seconds. And just to let you know, our 3 judges are continuing to monitor the debate and follow it, but their cameras will now be switched off to allow them confer and select the winning teams and to listen to those contributions. So I'd like to call on Czechia for your closing statement, please, now.
While we are opposed to a high flow of immigrants into Czechia, like our fellow EU states, we recognize that the current situation in Ukraine is absolutely awful. It is a violation of the human rights of every Ukrainian citizen, and it is a violation of international law. However, we are not in a position where we can realistically host hundreds or thousands of Ukrainians long term. The economic situation in Czechia makes this completely unsustainable. Were we to open our doors to all immigrants fleeing the war, we would only be a temporary stop. We would not be able to support them. This war is a tragedy, but Czechia have been at the front line of a war on immigration for the past few years, dealing with the consequences of many of the world's conflicts, such as the Arab Spring and most of all, the Syrian civil war. As such, we are already at breaking point, and the mechanisms of this proposal will not alleviate the strains, leaving us with no choice but to reject the proposal.
Thank you very much. And now we're moving to Sweden.
Sweden has decided it is in our best interest for our people and our economy to propose the legislation on asylum and migration management. The reason Sweden has decided to propose this legislation is due to the following reasons. Sweden has many immigrants in its borders. It's around 11.25 per 1,000 people, and Sweden does not see this topic in need of debate. If we can take in people, Sweden's doors will always be open. This is a humanitarian issue. It involves real people. It involves families, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters. It involves those fleeing war-torn countries. Swedish society is based on equality. Humans cannot and should not be classified as being illegal. We need to have a united front on this. I would also like to thank Stella
Cayley, who is a worker in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Sweden and has been a great help to us, and it was an honour to receive an email from her. So thank you.
Thank you.
And well done. Thank you. We're now moving to Spain.
Albert Einstein, who was a migrant from Germany, said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Migration will continue to be a problem until we take a different and united approach. The return sponsorship should not count solely towards solidarity obligations among EU member states. This means that countries like ours will still bear most of the cost of asylum due to our geographical location. In some ways, the programme takes away the moral aspect of immigration and allows countries to view migrants as a problem that money can be thrown at. By giving countries the choice between sponsored return or accepting refugees, it may make the refugee crisis even worse. It also suggests that it is acceptable for countries to offer money due to fear of migrants exacerbating existing domestic issues, such as the housing crisis in Ireland. And it would still mean that when a crisis like the current Ukraine one happens, the EU is not equipped to deal with it. Solidarity is key, which is why we support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're moving now to Belgium.
We recognize the contributions and concerns of all member states that spoke today, and we implore you to put aside your differences. This is not a crisis regarding financial aid or security. This is primarily a humanitarian issue. Therefore, we must deal with it as such. We place a strong emphasis on cooperation and solidarity as we have for the beginning of today, and we would like to continue as such in the future.
The European Union was founded because we're stronger together than we are separate. This is not a debate about national borders or national budgets or who has more money. This is about solving a problem that has always been a problem. Ukraine aside, this will always be a problem, and so the EU needs to establish a mechanism to work that will continue to work for these sorts of problems.
If we cannot come together today, then how will we fare in the face of another inevitable migrant crisis?
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you, Belgium. We're going to Hungary now.
For our closing statement, we would like to say that we are not in a position to stand in solidarity with the EU on this proposal. We have strong views on the risk to civilian safety if we let this migratory pressure continue to overpower us, as it has since 2015. Our Prime Minister has said the following in response to EU pressure to ease our hard borders into Hungary. The government decided that we will not, quote, the government decided that we will not do anything to change the system of border protection. We will maintain this existing regime, even if the European Court ordered us to change it, end quote. Unfortunately, we simply cannot agree with the proposal made to stand in solidarity with the EU.
Thank you very much, Poland, and for your contributions today. We're now moving to Poland.
We, Poland, have heard all of your concerns, and we would like to say we have never fully disapproved of this legislation. With the more careful and thorough approach, we will be happy to work in compromise. All migrants are the top priority in today's discussion, and we must keep their safety at the top of our list. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your time and keeping your time. Moving to Denmark.
We appreciate everyone's points made today, but us here in Denmark have chose to oppose the legislation as we don't feel this mandatory solidarity is going to work, and we have our own vision for a new asylum system that we hope our other EU member states will follow suit and end up doing as well. Thank you.
And thank you, Denmark. We're now moving to Cyprus.
On a conclusive note, Cyprus is opposed to the proposal regulation of the European Parliament and of the Council on asylum and migration management, as it would simply not be feasible for Cyprus to facilitate any further immigration of asylum seekers from countries such as Syria, Lebanon, Greece, or any other surrounding countries, given its current circumstances and resources, and the increased migration of Ukrainian citizens into countries across the EU, including Cyprus, in the coming weeks and months. Therefore, Cyprus cannot stand in solidarity with the EU on this issue. Thank you.
And thank you. And we're moving now to Ireland.
This migration policy has seen some good elements. Ireland believes that it is right that countries like Greece and Italy get relief, and this migration policy goes some way to achieving this. However, where is the solidarity in allowing countries like Poland and Hungary, who are the top two beneficiaries of EU funds, to refuse to take migrants while others take in thousands? Along with this, we would like our amendments to Articles 2 and 3 to be considered and to reiterate our position on Article 6. We cannot opt in due to our common travel agreement with the UK, which predates the existence of the EU.
Our union depends on equality, promoting peace, stability, and freedom. We do not function without solidarity and upholding shared responsibility. Ireland urges all countries to take up their fair share. Gurv Mila Mahagru.
Gurmina Maka, to you. We're going to Lithuania.
Chairperson, fellow ministers, honoured guests, Lithuania urges you to act now, adapt and adopt this regulation. How? Firstly, the Schengen Border Code does not sufficiently address how member states may respond to illegal crossings. Secondly, border surveillance alone is not sufficient to prevent illegal border crossings. This must be complemented with further preventative measures. Thirdly, physical barriers do work to protect borders effectively. Such barriers on EU external borders should be additionally and adequately funded from the EU budget.
Colleagues, we hear your reservations. We hope that today has helped us to live up to the EU motto, united in diversity. The current crisis we face, particularly those triggered by rogue regimes and Eastern aggression, will not wait. We must act. Let's adapt this regulation together and make it work. Thank you.
And thank you, Lithuania. We're now moving to Greece.
Madam Chairperson, we are aware the time is of the essence at this stage of this morning's debate, but we, the Greek delegation, feel that it would be very remiss of us not to recall the tragic circumstances of Alan Kurdi's death in 2015, the 3-year-old Syrian baby whose little body was washed up on a beach in Turkey. Alan and his family were trying to reach our country, where they hope to build a better life. This is the reality every day for so many refugees who simply want a safe place to raise their families. This is also the reality for over 1 million Ukrainians who have fled their home in recent days. We in the European Union should be doing everything we can to help them, and we should ensure that similar tragedies are avoided in the future at all costs. Thank you.
And thank you, Greece. We're going to Italy now.
There is no doubt that we all face a multitude of challenges in responding to the needs of refugees and migrants. Our current reactionary migration policies are insufficient. The Syrian refugee crisis and now the conflict in Ukraine show us that we need a long-term regulation that will respond to any such crisis in the future for all EU countries, which is why it is important that all member states take responsibility and become involved. The lack of solidarity shown here today by Hungary, Poland, Austria, and Czechia has hindered proceedings. Many other member states have suffered migratory pressure, yet we see the need to function as a union. We are, after all, a union, no. Italy proposes the adoption of the regulation with penalties for those member states who refuse to cooperate and show empathy for the current situation at hand. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Italy. We're now going to Latvia.
Thank you. We are not changing our position on this issue. Latvia is not a wealthy country, so we will struggle to accept additional immigrants or relocate non-EU nationals without substantial funding, especially due to the migratory pressure that we have faced. We are still in favour of the solidarity contributions expressed in Article 3 and agree with the principles set out in Article 6. Yet the fact remains that we are still at risk of further migratory pressure and are struggling to deal with this crisis. We are concerned about the facilitated illegal immigration from Belarus to Latvia due to the Belarus government's collaboration with Russia. If immigrants from Belarus share the views with their government, there would likely be civil conflict with Ukrainian refugees in Latvia. We are particularly empathetic towards the situation that Ukrainian people are facing and would love to have the opportunity to help them in any way we can. This is why we need your support and your funding so that we can do more. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you. We're now going to Luxembourg.
In conclusion, we in Luxembourg do agree with this proposal. For such a small countries as ourselves, we do intake a huge number of refugees. We strive for European solidarity. We led the European Union on the MyPact scale. We can and we will take in lots of refugees. We have always taken in refugees. To member states opposed, if you had said your statements last week, your opinions would be different. We have always committed. Why can't you? The European Union needs to be as one in solidarity. Luxembourg is a model for immigration intake. We have done our part. How will you? This is not just now, it is always. So please open your eyes to this and make more of an effort like we do. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
And thank you for joining us today in Luxembourg. We're going to the Netherlands now.
We would like to thank all of our fellow member states and facilitators of this event. We especially agree with Belgium and Luxembourg on their proposals. We are entering a period of peril, which necessitates consistent, coherent, and coordinated responses. While we may not agree on every issue, suggestion, or proposal, we believe that we can all agree on the fact that we just want what's best for our citizens and the rest of the globe. And we in the Netherlands feel that this is best achieved through collaboration. Therefore, we would like to reiterate our collective belief in the solidarity contributions and as outlined in Article 3 at an EU level. And I'd like to finish by saying that we need not only unity in theory, but solidarity in practice. Dank u wel.
And thank you. We're now going to Slovakia.
We stand with Slovenia, Latvia, Estonia, and Ireland's views on return sponsorship. We agree with the proposal, but would like changes regarding Article 6 and 4 to be made. We need more monitoring to ensure the member states get what they need immediately and not after the crisis. Further, we agree with Estonia's approach for solving the issue regarding Article 6, but we don't share their slightly unhumanitarian views regarding France. We need solidarity. We need a united voice. Slovakia wants this to happen. Stand with us, show solidarity like Belgium and Sweden, and act now. Where there's a will, there's a way. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you. I appreciate that. We're going to Malta.
We want to thank all of our member states for taking the time to discuss this important topic. Our EP president has stated, and I quote, "This route may be difficult for member states, and it is unfortunate that this has exposed division in our union. But I am confident that we will manage to overcome this crisis despite the bruising process. We are still standing our ground in choosing to support this motion, and I urge this European Union to stand in solidarity." Thank you.
And thank you, Malta. We're now going to Estonia.
Estonia acknowledges the desperate need for immediate migrant action, and we have a host of expertise from the Estonian Cohesion Programme focused on the assimilation of migrants to our society, to our cybersecurity front, which we would love to share with the EU. We would love nothing more than to collaborate with our European neighbours, but cannot help but failing suitable amendments, as we have suggested, to Article 6, that we cannot in good faith propose a motion which we believe is unsuitable to deal with the current crisis, and feel the proposition is unfit for purpose. As Robert Schuman, French statesman, once said, world peace cannot be preserved without creative forces equal to the dangers threatening it. And we, Estonia, do not believe this proposition is the one the EU or the migrants it's dealing with deserves. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. We're now moving to Bulgaria.
As per our opening statement, we agree with the fair share responsibility listed in Article 6 based on our GDP and population in our country. We commit to the fair share of relocations or return sponsorship, 1.4% outlined in the proposed agreement. We accept the terms listed in Article 6, subsection 4, regarding the redistribution of migrants among other member states should migration reach twice the size of the GDP.
We agree with the proposed solidarity contributions listed in Article 3. With the support of the EU, we could certainly build on the infrastructure and conditions of asylum seekers and the return policy of immigrants. We realize we need to provide better care for immigrants, such as better education, jobs, opportunities, and housing. It's important that the laws are regulated to ensure safe passage of migrants through the EU countries across the 27 member states. This cannot be done without agreement by all, commitment of all, to uphold the core principles of the European Union. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Bulgaria. We're now moving to Austria.
While Austria disagrees with the regulation, specifically Article 6 and 7 and their subsections, we are willing to make an exception for Ukraine, considering the circumstances and their close proximity to us. Austria wishes to remove visa requirements for Ukrainian citizens, making their travels towards our country that much easier. However, we are more than willing to aid the development of the countries of origin of the refugees and asylum seekers to help raise the standard of living to make it as safe as possible for migrants to return comfortably home. But to conclude, Austria will support the migrants as best we can, but the livelihood of Austria must come first. Dankeschön. Dankeschön.
Thank you very much. And we're now moving to Romania.
We, Romania, still agree with the migrant policy because we believe it is the right choice and best for Europe. These are people, not numbers. Imagine them in your position and you in theirs. How would you ask to be treated? What we discussed today could affect the future of generations of people, not numbers.
I would also like to point out that it could be any of our countries that may be attacked in the future. How would we, like other countries, to take action and come to our aid? Thank you.
And thank you very much, Romania. We are now heading to Finland.
Firstly, we stand in solidarity with Belgium as we cannot accomplish all we need to do without working together, as outlined in Article 6. We also agree with the Netherlands that the location of a member state should not influence the number of migrants received, as we must work in solidarity together, as mentioned in Article 5. Greece, we agree that all member states should look at this situation from an international perspective and not a national one. In conclusion, Finland still stands in favour of this regulation. We are committed to all our agreements to provide international protection to those in need. We believe that further dialogue is necessary, but that a common ground can be found. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is a process. Working together is success. To reiterate our opening point, Finland needs migrants just as much as they need us. Kiitos.
And thank you very much. I am now moving to Croatia.
With all perspectives and issues raised today, we in Croatia have carefully analysed the concerns and insights pertinent to this regulation. We need transparency. This is why we firmly support the notion of adapting Article 6.3 on further clarity of choice. Our fruitful discussion today has enabled us to meticulously determine whether the proposed legislation is in essence the most viable asylum and migration policy. In accordance with Slovakia, regarding the regulation, the regular review of Annex 1, we trust that this measure will aid in alleviating migratory pressure. Croatia welcomes this regulation in its entirety, as we believe that a united and cohesive response on asylum and migration management will promote the well-being of all parties involved. As member states, it is paramount that we efficiently manage migration within the EU with the utmost sensitivity and specificity. Voilà. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Croatia. We're now going to Germany.
As we have said, and other member states have said throughout this debate, in order for the proposal to work, the cooperation of all member states is required. And for those member states who are refusing to offer their support, how can you call yourself a part of the European Union when you choose not to help people who only want to live safely within the European Union that you call home? Thank you.
And thank you, Germany. We're now moving to Portugal.
To conclude, the Portuguese Republic, a country open to the world, will today be at the centre of those affirming EU values with other member states, wishing to reach a consensus on this proposal. From our viewpoint, it seems a majority of the member states here agree that the steps required to control external borders, i.e. responsibility, should be shared and that there should be a general principle of solidarity, even if it's flexible in practice. We wish to negotiate further with other flexible member states. The EU Asylum Agency and the Frontex, in which Portugal is very active, is there to assist member states under migratory pressure, especially those on external borders. Essentially, we must show the power that lies in our democracies, as it is our duty to offer support to those who rely on us. We are confident that we can successfully manage the crisis if we work together. Obrigada. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, Portugal. We're now going to Slovenia.
To conclude, we came to this debate today disagreeing with the proposal, but since then we have shown diplomacy, unlike some. We agree with Estonia and we will agree with the proposal if there is a compromise made on Article 6 and if the EU could work together to create a more inclusive system to calculate a country's fair share of migrants. The proposed system only benefits countries that pop up on Hotel Trivago
We believe that this already excellent proposal will become even more structurally sound with our amendment. Slovenia agrees with everything it's trying to achieve, and with a thorough examination and our included amendment, we believe this proposal can achieve what is set out to do.
And by the way, thank you very much, Slovenia. We are now heading to the final contributor. Would you please give way to France?
Estonia, we acknowledge your point that we should tackle the root cause of illegal immigration. However, we're not in a position to tackle that now due to the crisis in Ukraine. And there are other reasons than a war for illegal immigrants too. What about them? Now, as a founding member of the EU, we would like to reiterate that the purpose of this union is to work as a united front to tackle complex issues, such as migration today. We feel the need to say that this regulation is a more organized migration tactic than we had before, and our position remains unchanged in regards to regulation. I understand countries' hesitance towards Article 6, however. We recommend that, due to the crisis in Ukraine, we should give additional funding all around as a temporary measure to ensure that countries can handle the micro pressure, with further evaluation of Article 6 after this crisis is over. We are the EU. We must stay united in tackling these issues. Thank you.
And thank you, France, and thank you, everyone. And that concludes now your contributions for today. I think it's fair to say there were very considered contributions and there was robust debate at times. It would have been very interesting if you were all in one room. I think overall, if we were looking at the debate, it was marked, first of all, people's contributions were marked very much by geography, where you situated, and the number and scale of the migrants that you're hosting and helping in your countries, and also by the political philosophy of the governing parties of those countries. Also, many contributions at the beginning gave first-hand accounts and experiences of the situation in their countries, and also there was a clear call for those who are at the forefront of this for financial assistance. Consensus, a united approach, a coordinated approach was mentioned many times in these contributions, the need for solidarity, but there was also a call out for the lack of solidarity from some member states. And particularly in the final stages of the debate, I think it's fair to say there were claims and counterclaims and defending positions and also putting other countries on the spot. That's certainly marked out it. A number of countries used the facility to make amendments to try reach consensus, and that was very clear. They were using all the tools at their disposal to come around to a consensus. And also another key issue that was mentioned, particularly at the beginning, was returning migrants to their countries and the safety and other issues of concern, particularly where there is to a country of conflict. And Ukraine, I will finish on that. It was heartening to hear so many contributions that did mention what is happening in Ukraine at the moment with its invasion by Russia. Now, very strong contributions, very considered, and the ability to come back and make very strategic and convincing arguments, and also to tease out the points is very important, not the number. And I really say this, I've marked out a few countries that I would think were very strong, but thankfully it's not my job today because I wouldn't like to judge it. That is over to our panel of judges. Brian Killoran, the CEO of the Immigrant Council of Ireland, Stephen O'Shea, the Deputy Chief Executive of European Movement Ireland, and Grace Bolton, Head of Press at the European Commission representation here in Ireland. So I am so glad to hand over to you and to Brian. I think you are going to announce the winners.
Thank you very much, Martina. Yeah, I've been delegated the duty of giving feedback to all participants, and I suppose on behalf of the judges, I just like to stress and to say a hearty congratulations to every school that participated today. This is my second time doing it, and I was absolutely blown away the first time that I did this debate, because the quality of the contributions, the quality of the research, and that was surpassed again today, particularly when you take into account, as Martina just said, recent developments at a European level, particularly regarding Ukraine and how that was threaded through all of the input today by schools. The conversations were incredibly well researched. The inputs were accurate. They were accurate to the geographical and socio-political landscapes of Europe. Indeed, even more recent developments in that, where countries who were previously very opposed to measures such as this have warmed more to them of late. It's really incredible, and I congratulate them. We as a judging panel congratulate you all in the work that you put into this and how you did it. I absolutely would not have been able to do that when I was in secondary school, not even when I was in college. So I really want to commend you all for the work that you did. And I suppose it's really important as well that migration is such to the forefront of the education system and young people's minds at the moment, as regards not just what's happening, but how we plan for it in the future. And I hope that some of you will consider going into that area, and if not, going into diplomacy or politics or policy making, because you've all got skills in it. You're all incredibly well. You've got an incredibly good foundation in it, clearly from what you did today. So I'm going to get on to the difficult job, the incredibly difficult job that we had of trying to pick winners from all the contributions today, because I know that's really what you want to hear. Before I do that, we have a number of honourable mentions. So I will get on to the first, second and third place winners in a second. But before I do that, I would like to make from the judging panel 3 honourable mentions for very, very strong participants and very, very strong interventions. The 3 that we have singled out for honourable mentions are Malta from Coloș na Nagel, Romania from St. Augustine's College, and Latvia from Manor House School. So you guys were right up there in terms of the contention for the top 3 places, and did very, very well in terms of your interventions and your rebuttals and your back and forth in the discussion today. So congratulations to you all for that. In terms then of the winners, so we will start with the 3rd place. First of all, I suppose we just 1 second. Sorry. So first of all, in 3rd place, we have selected the country Austria with Step Aside, Educate Together Secondary School. So it was the opinion of the judging panel to the guys from Austria that you had an extremely good grasp of the materials, an extremely good ability to respond with very well researched points, and in particular a very good grasp of up-to-date developments such as the temporary mechanisms that are in consideration around asylum and protection in the EU. So congratulations to you guys in Austria. That's Step Aside, Educate Together Secondary School. So congratulations, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In 2nd place, then we have selected Spain. So that is Loreto from Kilkenny. Spain did a fabulous job in articulating clear and very convincing arguments, good research on the funding mechanisms at the EU, and I think from all the judges in particular as well, a very good grasp of the policy and other considerations, and very much your arguments were grounded in those and delivered with a great grasp of the nuance in them as well. And the method and the manner in which you articulated your arguments was very well laid out. So congratulations to Spain, and that's Loreto and Kilkenny.
Thanks a million.
So then in 1st place, the team that we have selected as the winners of this year's Model European Council are Ireland. Ireland delivered a very, very strong and very consistent
Thank you.
A very strong, very consistent argument and debate throughout the whole debate this morning. They displayed very strong teamwork. They were very diplomatic, as is the Irish approach generally, but also had a hard edge when it was needed, especially when they had to rebut points made about the homeless situation in Ireland, and that was very well rebutted. They engaged extremely well with the materials, were very clear and calm, and made the points extraordinarily well throughout. So congratulations to Ireland, and that is Ard Skull Reach.
Thank you.
So on behalf of the judging panel, I again would like to reiterate to those of you that didn't make the honourable mention round, and those of you that didn't make the top 3, don't be disheartened. It was an incredibly difficult job, and everybody really deserves an honourable mention because you did a fantastic job throughout the morning. And the future is bright when we have articulate, well-researched and engaged people like that in our secondary schools, making arguments of that nature. So thank you all very much on behalf of the judging panel.
And thank you very much, Brian, for a very considered view on the contributions and on the state of play. And well done to all the winners. I am going to give out my own honourable mention to Estonia because we had lost them and they came back. And I don't think anyone would have realised that they were grappling with technical difficulties at the beginning. So fair dues to you, that was a good save. And you certainly did, you masked well all those technical issues with your broadband at the start. Now, so congratulations to all our winners. And we would like everyone to wave your flags to congratulate them because clapping really isn't great online. So the silent gesture, and thank you very much for participating. Now we're delighted to be joined today by the MEP, Maria Walsh, who's going to announce the prizes for the winning teams. Maria.
Oh, good afternoon, and thank you very much. Congorgicus, congratulations, not just to the 3 schools and the 3 countries and the honourable mentions also, but to each and every one of you. I had connected a little bit earlier and was listening to all the wonderful debates. Can I ask, just from a virtual show of hands, how many learned how difficult diplomacy is in the last couple of hours? Yeah, it's not easy, folks, is it? When you have various perspectives, ideas, cultures, thought processes, biases, upbringings, and as someone who is still new into politics at just 2.5 years old, after being elected the youngest Irish MEP so far, it's phenomenal as something as very emotive as migration is, as wide and as broad church of migration is, how much we learn about ourselves, how much we learn about our communication style, our putting aside our own thought processes of wanting and needing and trying to do as much for another as you can, how diplomacy and governmental infrastructure works. I'm delighted to see, and I feel my imposter syndrome has since left when I see all the hands up, because it just goes to show you how each and every one of you perhaps are going to step away with understanding how difficult bridge building is, negotiation and compromise. But essentially, you're, as Brian shared, you're all 10 steps ahead of many of us already in politics, certainly myself. When you can put yourselves in the shoes of another, trying to push for your own perhaps national perspective or governmental perspective, while also trying to make the world a little bit of an easier space for another. You have that political acumen that I didn't have, and I'm since only developing getting into politics. Migration as a whole, and it's big. I often think of it like the octopus, a lot of different tentacles from it. You've search and rescue, you've human trafficking, you've smuggling, you've war, which we are all experiencing now. And may I take a beat to say anybody who is connected or has been involved or is Ukrainian themselves or Russian, because I think we often forget the innocent on the other side too. My heart goes out to you all, and I know and I hope, as you're following or have been doing the work over the last number of weeks and months, and certainly today, that solidarity isn't a buzzword in the European Union anymore. It is an act and a movement in itself. I want to first and foremost just acknowledge Martina, because it's never easy to keep things on time. So you made a fantastic president of today's plenary. And I want to also acknowledge Brian, Stephen, and Grace, who, like Martina said, I would have hate to have done that job. Just even listening to the number of debates that I did listen to, it was remarkable. I was only been given a few minutes, which I know I've eaten into, but I just wanted to say, for anybody listening, before I announce the prizes, which everybody's no doubt sitting on the edge of their seats for, but I just wanted to take a second to say, journey into politics or diplomacy or policy or to the world of migration is never linear. I am a classic example of that. I didn't grow up in a household that debated or discussed policy like many of you have done, or in a school system that really encouraged that. And I think the European Ambassador Schools Programme, European Movement Ireland as a whole, perhaps you came from a primary school that did the Blue Schools Programme, is a phenomenal asset to have in your ever-growing toolbox. We are working now, and I think I can say collectively, to ensure that politics is easier to get into than it was 5, 10, even a year ago. We need to see different perspectives, different ideas and thought processes around our policy and decision-making table. We need to change the image that politics is just a certain type of gender in a certain skin color, wearing a certain color suit. That is not the case. In 2024, we will have local and European elections. Perhaps some of you will be of age to run. I look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail. But regardless, many of you, if not all, will be of voting age. And I hope you will extend and make your voice heard and your vote count. Because unfortunately, as you all know, we are living in a time where not all voices or votes are counted, even in our European Union. And therefore, it's incredibly important that a country like ours in Ireland, as progressive as it is understanding, is exercising, and is trying to bring more and more people around the dinner table of change. With that, I am delighted to say the 3 schools, Ireland, Spain, and Austria, each of the participants will win an iPad each. And for your school, you will win a MacBook. So I think that is, I want to make sure, yes, a MacBook for your school. Before I've overextended myself. So pretty cool to have an iPad each. So 6 iPads going out and 1 MacBook for your school, which I think is a phenomenal piece of infrastructure to have. My only ask is, if you could only use and utilize and search and share factual information. The rise of disinformation is ever rising. Martina knows this probably better than most given her profession. And I think it's incredibly important that in areas like migration, in areas of security, in equality and fundamental human rights, in minority organizations, in various elements that makes our European Union ours, it's incredibly important that we're sharing and we're looking for real information that's out there. And with that, congratulations to each and every one of you. I've learned a hell of a lot, and congratulations again to the honorable mentions and to Ireland, Spain, and Austria on winning an iPad each and a MacBook for your schools. And I look forward to, I genuinely mean this, I look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail in 2024.
Maria, thank you very much. You may not look forward to see them if they're competing against you, because I'm very hopeful that some of the students that we heard this morning will one day make their contributions in the European Parliament as elected MEPs. So watch out, Maria, and watch your back, because they could be coming sooner than later. And I want to thank Maria also for a very frank and honest, a contribution there on that she came from outside a political world and stood for election, had the bravery, took the jump, and is now sitting in the European Parliament, making her contribution and her voice heard. And some people will go down the political route that made their contributions today very well. And there was such professionalism and expertise and research done that was very clear, as Brian stated. But some might end up working for important organisations like the Immigrant Council of Ireland or European Movement Ireland to strong organisations, not-for-profit organisations that have a very strong national and international voice and make a real contribution to debate on those stages and to make a difference to people's lives. Or you may end up in the European institutions or in the civil service or in a local capacity using your persuasive skills to make a difference. So to all of you, congratulations today. And I think Brian said it, I would not have been able likewise to do what you've done at secondary school. I actually had a fear of public speaking in secondary school, which is ironic considering that I did spend 20 years in broadcasting in RTE before I moved on to Scale Ireland as CEO. So you've tackled that, you've grappled with that, and you have all shown such a brilliant professionalism today. I also want to pay tribute to your teachers and school principals that have supported you, your parents, no doubt. I want to thank the judges, Brian, Stephen and Grace, because that was a difficult task today, and there were more countries that you could have allocated prizes to than was allowed. So that was a difficult choice, and it wasn't a case where there was just a few. There were really many brilliant contributions. This wouldn't have been possible today without the European Commission representation here in Dublin and the European Parliament office. So thank you to both of them for hosting this important event. And it is an important event to learn more about the European institutions at such a critical time on the global stage, and to highlight the role of EU institutions on such important issues today. And we all know of those issues with what's happening in the Ukraine and the invasion by Russia. The decisions that you make, even today in this mock council, if you're making those in real life, you can see how clearly important they are. I think a special thanks has to go to Joan Flanagan, because she puts this together from the European Commission representation here in Dublin. And it is not an easy job. It is a huge show, especially online. So thank you for her expert organizational skills in putting it together. And also, it didn't go off track today, and that's because of Shane and John from Traction. They made sure it ran so smoothly, and that we even brought Estonia back, and that is the way it should be. And also, I am looking forward to next year's event, and I hope you all are, whether you're watching or participating. And I said this last year, but I really do hope it will be in person. But to be honest, you've navigated this online world and the world that we have live in now, that has brought everyone closer together in different ways, positively and negatively, but it has positively here this morning. Thank you all for your contributions today, and we'll see you whether it's in Leinster House, the European Parliament, a national organisation, the civil service, the European institutions, or in whatever way you're making your contribution. The very best of luck to you. Thank you.
Do on the mic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.